Okay. What is going on out there, my Jets family? Like always, I appreciate you guys for tuning in to the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. I'm here like always, but I have a special guest for you guys tonight. And the special guest needs no introduction. You guys know who he is. Please, everyone say hello to the man, the legend, Mr. GreenBean himself. Thank you for being here, my brother.
Yeah, dude, I've been looking forward to this one. I'm really grateful that you'd have me on, and I know we're going to have a blast, man. This is going to be good.
Yeah, I was on your show when we did that mock draft that time, and that was good stuff. You got a lot of people going in the comments and we're talking back and forth. Liked a lot of different guys. It was a good time. I mean, obviously the Jets wound up going in a different direction than that, but like I've been kind of saying, it seems like Joe Douglas is so much smarter. Like I do draft, as you've seen, I do draft analysis myself, and I had guys, I was looking at, and Joe Douglas just blows my mind. Like guys I wasn't looking at, then I look at him and I go, okay, he was right. Like Joe Douglas, he's the king, man.
Well, you know what, Harrison? In our defense, they picked 3 guys that weren't even available on the Sims. So talk about deep diving. We didn't even have access to these guys. So guys like you and I, we're digging. We're using every available moment that we can to try to learn all we can about these guys. And I would say that, we know quite a bit. But having guys selected that weren't even in our pool that we could pull from, you can't blame us for being wrong. You know what I mean? You can't blame us. Joe Douglas went deep, and I'm impressed, man. I'm hoping these guys can work out. Let's see, like guys like Jamison, Sherwood, and Nasruddin. I'm really excited about these guys. But who knows? I'm gonna try to temper my enthusiasm a little bit until at least game 1. What do you think?
Which is, it's understandable. We're the Jets. We get excited about every year, but this is different. I honestly do feel this is different, man. I feel like it started changing when Joe Douglas came in the building. Like that was my guy. We brought in Robert Saleh. Now the quarterback is here. You remember I was talking to you all about Zach when we had you on. I think it was on the top. That's my guy, man. We got him.
Yeah, you were early. You were early with Zach. You know what I mean?
I'm on cloud nine, man. Like I feel like I got my quarterback.
Yeah, I know. I don't even know what that feels like. You know what I mean? Like I've never gotten the quarterback that I wanted. You know what I mean? And I didn't not want Zach Wilson, but maybe you remember. I was just kind of. I liked Zach. I liked. I love Trevor Lawrence, but I liked Zach. I liked Justin Fields. I liked Trey Lance.
I remember you liked a little bit about each.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you like different things.
So it wasn't right. So he wasn't like my guy. But I gotta say, since he's been here though, I'm absolutely loving. I'm gonna take these off. I can't deal with the glare. I'm absolutely loving the reports coming out, the camaraderie, how he's looking, and it's OTAs. But isn't it better that we're saying it's only OTAs for the excitement side? Usually we're saying, hey, he threw 15 picks in practice, but it's only OTAs. Like we're usually on that side. So this time, the kid looks great, man, and I couldn't be more excited. I'm happy it's him. You know what I mean, man?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And I think you mentioned it with the camaraderie. Like I said, that was my guy. Like I knew, everyone, all those things people were saying he's not a leader. I'm like, that's crazy for X, Y, and Z. All the facts were there. In his pro day, he literally said, I eat, sleep, and breathe football. Like that's all I do. To the fact where Trevor Lawrence was questioned when he gave a normal answer where he's like, oh yeah, football is my life, but I have other things going on. And they're like, what do you mean? You don't eat, sleep, and breathe football like Zach Wilson? I don't understand. And he took all that flack on Twitter. Or in general.
Right. Well, there was that report that came out right before the maybe a week or two before the draft about Trevor Lawrence. And they were saying that stuff that hey, it's not really a big deal. If I make it, I make it. Remember, there was a lot of passive stuff. His parents said something along the lines of if he doesn't make it in football, he'll do something else. And everybody was like, dude, you can't talk like that going into the draft, and then there's Zach Wilson saying comments like that. So I totally get it. And like I said, seeing those guys at the Islanders games, Saleh gets it. He's at the Islanders games. He's doing interviews in an Islanders jersey. I mean, dude, he gets it. He knows fan base. And I think, giving us that token, these guys know we're tortured. We're parched as far as needing something fun to have in our
Yeah,
life.
there's no bandwagon Jet fans. Those don't exist.
No.
The joke I make is the bandwagon Jet fans left in 1970, like 1971. Like that was the
Right.
end of the bandwagon Jet fans.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, man. Like anybody walking around in a Jets hat or something, dude, they're legit. They're real. You know what I mean? They're not there doing it for the glitz. You know what I mean? We're Jet stuff.
Yeah, no, it's exciting, man. It really is. And you mentioned how he looks in OTAs. This was my guy. I was excited. Remember, I talked about his pocket awareness, like just innate, like nothing I'd seen since Russell Wilson. Like that was the first thing I noticed. Just his ability to sense pressure and reads and matchups and how this defensive guy lines up with this offensive guy and the probability of them. It was just unbelievable. I saw him processing that in microseconds, and my jaw just hit the floor, and I was like, I'm in love. And then all those other things like the arm strength, that was just extra to me, like gravy. Because you look at a guy like Russell Wilson, like he's functioned in a bad offensive line system where they've never put an offensive line around him because they just accepted that he's unbelievable without an offensive line. So fuck the offensive line.
Yeah, it's like we don't
like
need to allocate resources. But that's just it. Like they think they don't need to allocate resources to that. It's like imagine how great he would be if he actually had time to process. You know, but I mean, but that is what it is. But yeah, man, I hear you, dude. And Zach Wilson, you know, like just let's use that one play as an example. The one that everybody talked about to Elijah Moore over Bryce Hall, the 41-yard. And like you can see pictures of it and everything. And Bryce Hall's coverage was blanket. I mean, he was all over him. He was right there. But the pass was in the exact place where only Elijah Moore could get it. And dude, that's something that, with all due respect to Sam, like I'm not going to throw him under the bus now because he's gone, but it was few and far between that is what we saw. And for Zach Wilson to come out of the gate, even in OTAs, and do that sort of stuff and develop this kind of, you know, telepathic chemistry with Elijah Moore and Braxton Berrios, dude, it's a fantastic place to start. And why shouldn't we be excited, man? You know, we've earned it.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
what's
exactly.
wrong with that?
We paid our dues. I mean, we seem to be excited every year, but like I said, it's different. Like I felt it was different when Joe Douglas came in. I had a whole podcast on it. You saw it last week, like on all the reasons why I love Joe. If you guys didn't check it out, it was last Monday. Spent like an hour and a half just talking about, because after the first draft, I was like, this guy's great. And everyone's like, what do you mean? It's too early. And I'm like, no, for all of these, a billion reasons up to that. So yeah, he's the guy. We brought in Robert Saleh. I wanted Zach Wilson. The pieces are there. Like the pieces are there. It feels different. Like I was trying to think about a quarterback I felt this hyped about. Like I didn't want Darnold. Like, I mean, not that I didn't want him, but you know, he was supposed to be the first overall guy. Like he wasn't expected to fall to the Jets. So I wanted Lamar Jackson, but I knew the Jets are never taking him. Like that's not happening. So I got all aboard the Baker train. Like Baker was my guy. Like I was ready.
Yeah. You know what? It's really funny because, like, and not to have some sort of weird, like, revisionist history, but the truth is that I didn't want Sam Darnold either. Like, I you know, remember, it was just like with Trevor Lawrence. It was very similar. He was the understood first overall draft pick. So guys like us, we spent a lot of time looking into the other guys. And my guy was Baker Mayfield over Josh Rosen. I did not want Josh Rosen. And second for me was Josh Allen, although I just didn't feel like we had the coaches for him. Like I knew he's the kind of guy that's going to need coaching, and I was real nervous and all that sort of stuff about us getting him, but I thought he was going to end up being the guy that we got. But yeah, man, I was very happy that it was Sam Darnold, to be completely square and completely frank. And he really came out of the gate looking good. But man, there's a whole different excitement, like with respect to Todd Bowles and even Mike Maccagnan at the time. Like, you know,
you don't have to give Mike Maccagnan any respect. It's all good.
I know, man. It's like,
feel free to throw him under the bus.
There's an interview with Mike Maccagnan right after they picked Sam Darnold, and he said, "Well, you know, we were just absolutely ecstatic that he fell to us. This was our number one guy on the board. And now it's our responsibility to use the rest of the draft to support him." And the next pick was a small school, old 26-year-old defensive tackle. Like, is there a position that helps him less in the entire game of football, you know? So it's funny how clueless that whole regime really was. And you can see the difference. Like, while I understand people have their arguments with Joe Douglas, you got Pierre Desir and Ryan Khalil, which I can explain all those away. I can. But it's like, I get the perspective of having tentative kind of feelings toward Joe Douglas. But dude, if you can't see the difference in just the foundational mindset of this team, then you're not looking, man. You're stuck. And because it's so incredibly different right now. And dude, I can't help but be excited. I'm working on slowing myself down, but it's like, dude, let's be happy for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? This is good stuff.
No, I'm with you, man. And you mentioned OTAs before with Zach Wilson. Again, this was my guy. I knew he was going to be great. I didn't think it was going to be this quick. Like, honestly, this quick.
Yeah.
Like, he's lighting it up, throwing excellent passes, like you mentioned. I always talked about my second favorite thing about him was throwing receivers open, which people tend to not realize there's a double aspect to that. It's that other aspect of, putting a touch on a pass when it needs it, because you can't throw it, a bomb at a guy 5 yards away. He's never going to catch it. So it's the aspect of putting the ball where it needs to, plus putting the right amount of accuracy and velocity on it. I loved that about him too. Like, it was unbelievable how he could throw, a bomb and then also throw a touch pass. But the big thing a lot of these beat writers are saying, especially yous, is they're saying Zach Wilson doesn't just look good for a rookie. He just looks good, like, period. Yeah. He just looks good. And he's looking a hell of a lot better than Trevor Lawrence, who's actually got an injury right now.
I know. And like, if Trevor Lawrence came here and had that injury, we would be getting beaten down. Like, it would be relentless. Like, the Jets' luck, the curse, it's taken. We told you Trevor Lawrence, right? Trevor Lawrence.
I think you're right, yeah.
Oh, my God.
The same I never thought of that, but I think you're right. The freaking LOL Jets narrative will be spun. Like, same old Jets, they can't get it right. This is their luck. You're right. I think you're 100% correct, man. I think that's what would happen.
Dude. Remember before, like, when we were the winless team in the league, and it looked like we were going to have the number one pick, there were a few articles that came out, and tweets like from Steve Young and from Roddy White, and then there was that guy Shap saying that the NFL draft process should not be the way it is because a guy like Trevor Lawrence shouldn't have to go to a team like the Jets, and that was before we even had him. So,
which doesn't even make sense, because that's what the whole point of the draft is. The worst team gets the top guy. It's always been that way.
That's how bad that they hate the Jets. It's a funny thing, and that's the delight they take in this narrative. It's like, you're telling me that the entire draft process, which is 70 or 50 something years old or something by now, you're going to tell me that we should change the whole thing just so the Jets don't get a good quarterback at the top because we're so – it's like, it's such a stupid thing. But if he was actually here and this was happening for us, it would be relentless, man. We would be hearing the Jets killed Trevor Lawrence. It'd be on the back of the Post, with like the Jets as a Grim Reaper with Trevor Lawrence. All that kind of stuff would be happening, man. And I wish him well. And I'm not like happy that he's injured, but I am happy it's not us. And I'm not, I don't want to talk too much shit because I believe in like jinxing players and stuff. I'm a little superstitious. So, but I'm happy it's not us, man. And I hope that we can keep guys like Zach Wilson healthy. Like, if nothing else, let's just get somebody on the damn field for 16 or 17 games now. And let's see what he really can do without having to, imagine what the other 3 or 4 game stats would be. You know what I mean? You know how that's always our year. So I just hope he stays healthy. I can't wait for mandatory, man. I can't wait. That's going to be some good stuff.
We're going to get into that because we're going to be talking about Jamison Crowder. So Jamison Crowder's coming, guys. But just a shout out in the chat. Appreciate all you guys being here. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. We got Frank, we got Darren, we got Rusty. Zach made a comment, and that's actually the one I wanted to throw in. Zach mentioned how doesn't Lawrence have a smaller, lower frame? Man, they threw everything at Zach Wilson. They're like, this kid's too small. Like, he's under 6 feet. And I'm like, no, he's not. Like, watch him stand next to anybody. Like, just basic measurables. Like, he's not under 6 feet. I figured they said 6'3", but he wound up coming in at 6'2". But even though he was shorter than Trevor Lawrence, he weighed more. The kid had a bigger frame, and that was the big knock on him, that he's too small. He can't take a hit. Then they measure him and they see what he can actually do. Then there was that leadership crap. He's not a leader. His teammates come out and say that's crazy. That's not true. Yeah. Immediately, his coaches come out. And they're like, why didn't Zach come out himself? Well, That's the whole point of being a leader. He doesn't have to. His coaches and all of his players were like, that's garbage. That's not true. Like, I don't know who's making that up. He's not a captain. He's got a captain badge on every freaking jersey he wears. Like, they're throwing everything at this kid, and he's just rising above it, making statements like football's my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the funny thing, like how they try so hard to find that negative spin on anything. It really is crap, which is why I like guys like there's a lot of guys like popping up now, in addition to guys like ourselves, but like Robbie Sabo. He's very objective and he's very constructive. And there's a few other guys. And I just kind of lean toward that stuff because the old guard, like the Saminis and on and on and on, their entire purpose is to find, even if it's not the Jets, but just to find a negative aspect, like the captain, the C on a jersey, or that he wasn't a leader. And it's like, they can make a huge story about that when it's not even true. And that's the kind of stuff that we see all the time. But when you talk about, Zach Wilson's build, like, so 6'2" or 6'1", does it really matter anymore? Like when they talk about an offensive lineman, his arms are a quarter inch less than the other guy, and they're telling me that that's going to somehow stop him from being the great player that he is. I mean, look, when it's extreme, I get it, but dude, we get way caught up in these semantics sometimes, man. It's pretty ridiculous. And
but even when it is extreme, like, I mean, if you remember Baker Mayfield, shout out to him. He said it the best. When they interviewed him about being short, he said, listen, man, with these offensive guards, these offensive linemen now, if you're not 6'5" or 6'6", you're not seeing over the offensive line anyway. 6'2", 6'3", 5'11", 6 foot. It honestly doesn't matter. You have to, like he said, know where the receiver is, put the proper arc on the ball. It doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, right. So a guy 6'2", it's just like, all right, well, he's in the same boat as I am because all the offensive linemen are 6'6". So what are you going to do? Nobody sees.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's why there's so much more. People watch quarterbacks on TV and they're like, I could do that. From that angle, it doesn't look too hard.
Yeah, I know. You don't realize how intricate this game really is. And that's why, like, when you look at something like the football IQ, which is a big one for me, man. Like, I really like guys that have that processing speed. I like guys that, just like you said, that eat, breathe, and sleep football, and they can ingest it and really process it. That's the guys. You want the game to get slow, and you want it to be second nature. You want the playbook and like all the nuances and the foundational stuff to be second nature, and then they can become great. And rather than being stuck like Mark Sanchez was. Remember, we had to like get Mark Sanchez the color-coded wristbands and all this stuff to kind of simplify the game for him. And even Sam Darnold, man, you could see clearly he wasn't processing what was there at the rate that he needed to. And it's nice to know that we at least have this opportunity with a guy that seems to have a very, very high football IQ. And that's one of the most important things from my standpoint.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, man. So, just moving on to some other guys. Frank, shout out to Frank there. He mentions about Moses asking if he signed elsewhere. Then Rusty brings it up. I'd love it if we got Moses. It's an interesting situation because, if Fant's money wasn't fully guaranteed at this moment, it's a no-brainer. Like, it's an easy one. Fant's money is technically guaranteed, but my interesting question is, you want athletic offensive linemen in this new system. That's what everyone keeps saying. In this zone system, you want athletic offensive linemen. Fant's one of the most athletic offensive linemen out there. Moses has been one of the best right tackles in the NFL for like 7 years. His whole career, he's been one of the top right tackles. Last year, he had his best season yet. He put up a PFF of 80, like his best season ever. And he even dabbled at left tackle when someone got hurt. So the dude's versatile. But
and he doesn't miss games.
Like I'd still sign him. Yeah, exactly. I would try to sign him maybe and put Fant at guard, possibly. I mean, we have the money to spend. So, I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, Fant's money's guaranteed now. But I don't know, man. I mean, an upgrade is an upgrade to me, and we got the money, and that's a clear upgrade. Like, again, that's a top-tier right tackle.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, clearly, if you have the opportunity to add somebody like Morgan Moses and the price is right and all those types of things, I think just like you said, it's a no-brainer. You got to do it. Now, what does that do to George Fant? I don't know, but I will say that he's also one that has a lot of upside still. I mean, last year was his first year as a full-time starter, and he played well on a very poor team. So, he's a guy you don't even know yet. He could end up being our best offensive lineman. So it's like to
I wouldn't
push
go
him
that far.
off.
Makai's there.
Well,
And so is
look,
AVT.
hey, Makai's got to stay on the
I'll
field.
take good. I'll take good.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying we don't know. We don't know yet. I mean, the guy has steadily improved throughout his career outside of some injuries. He played well at left tackle. He obviously played well at tight end. That sixth offensive lineman was even versatile enough to catch some passes and got in the end zone a few times. The guy has shown that whatever role that you put him in, he does play well. And coming from a basketball background, I mean, the guy's not even that long on the football field. So he's one of those players where the upside is incredible. And look, I'm hoping Mekhi Becton is what we think Mekhi Becton is. I'm hoping AVT is what we think AVT is too. But we don't know what George Fant is. So granted, I think that on face value, Morgan Moses is an upgrade. And if I could grab him, I would. George Fant, I believe, already got a $3 million bonus, part of his contract this year. And like you
and
said,
the $8 million
his
changes, I think, guaranteed now, as opposed to like
so
a month or two ago when it wasn't.
So what do you do with a guy like that? Now, if you're going to push him to guard, what does that do to the rest of the guys? Now, granted, you don't want to let the Alex Lewises and the Greg Van Rotens of the world keep you from putting a better player in that position. But I do think the guard competition is one of my areas of interest. And it's one of those competitions this year that's going to be very interesting, especially when you add Cam Clark to the mix. So I don't know. I think that the easiest thing to do is just say, hey, the five best guys play, and George Fant and Moses will have somewhat of a little battle, and then we'll try George Fant at guard or whatever. And if he looks better than Van Roten, Alex Lewis, and Clark, then he plays, and Clark can sit down for another year. There's nothing wrong with developing him. He's a 4th-round pick, man, so it's not the biggest deal in the world. So I don't know. I think, again, just collect the best players you can and leave it to the coaches to figure that stuff out. You know what I mean?
GreenBean, if I could, I would I'm high-fiving you through the camera.
Yeah.
I 1,000% agree with what you say. Like, that's all I'm ever saying. Like, my big thing has been, other than Zach Wilson, this whole team is an open canvas right now. Like, I want certain guys, like Corey Davis should be good, Mims, Cole, but whoever wants it. Like, we're going to get into it a little bit about Cole stepping up to possibly that wide receiver 2 position. If he wants it, come get it. Like, all these guys, from undrafted guys to anybody, now is your opportunity. Like, you bring in the best players. Bring in Moses. He's a top-tier tackle. If he beats out Fant, so be it. If Fant sits for $8 million, okay, you have a better player in Moses. And if he wins the right guard spot, that's awesome too. He definitely could. I really like Clark's potential, but I couldn't agree more with what you said. But bring in the talent. Always look to upgrade. Best players play. Like, doesn't matter the money. Same reason they benched Jermaine Johnson back in the day. The dude's making a lot of money, but you suck. So it doesn't matter that you're making a lot of money. Like, you're sitting down.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I really liked about, like Greg Williams coming in. It's like at least we have a guy. It doesn't matter how much that you pay, because Todd Bowles wasn't that way. If you were the guy, the marquee guy, and you had the name and the money, you were playing. That's the way Todd Bowles was. He never benched his vets, and at least Greg Williams did that. Because, like you said, man, look, it doesn't matter that you're making $13.4 million a year, and the next guy is making 1.1. He's playing better than you, and you suck. So sit down. I like that. And look, if Fant ends up being the swing tackle, so we have Moses and Becton, and Fant is the swing tackle, and that pushes a guy like Chuma Edoga off the roster, so be it, man. So be it. You keep, or maybe it just pushes Connor McDermott off the roster. But, that's the kind of thing that I don't know how much Fant would be happy with that situation, and you don't necessarily look to upset the leaders of your team. Don't forget, he was voted as a team captain last year, and he was kind of the adult in the room with the offensive lineman at the Islanders game. They sent him along with Dan Feeney because that guy might be trouble, man. So we got to keep our eye on Dan Feeney. But so George Fant is a leader in the locker room. So I think you
don't like Feeney's energy.
I love it. I'm just saying, that's the kind of guy you got to just. You keep them in going because he could slip off quick. That type
I
of
mean,
guy
he's never
banging
gotten in
beer cans on
trouble.
his head.
Yeah,
I know.
he's never gotten in
I'm just,
trouble. Like, he's
I
never done anything stupid. But I like that. Like, I know a lot of people on Twitter were legit saying, like, forget that Feeney has actually, sucked for the last 4 years and probably shouldn't be a starter. Like, they just loved his energy.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, bring this
Yeah.
guy in alone to like put him on the field, like on the 50-yard line before the game, and just have him crush those beer cans against his head, get the whole crowd psyched up.
Right. Well, the whole world. I mean, dude, Jet Nation fell in love with that guy after those
Because you love
videos
energy.
came out.
It's the passion. And that's why people loved Robert Saleh. I mean, that was Robert Saleh. I love football. I want to bring in the right people. And all the people he's bringing in, like you said, they said they love, eat, sleep, and breathe football.
Right, man. And I wouldn't even be surprised to find out that those guys go into the games like that, Zach Wilson and his offensive lineman, wasn't by design from Coach Saleh. I wouldn't even think that was an issue. Like getting those guys to get out of the facility together and have a good time, feeling the energy of New York sports and having that good time. Dude, you can't create that, like what they felt that day, and that all the good vibes that came out of that, and like we just said, all the fans falling in love with Dan Feeney and having a blast. Like that's the kind of stuff that we have not seen. This team for the past 6 years has been a dud. The only thing we got was some bullshit from Jamal Adams and stuff like that, but nothing fun like this was coming out of the Jets. So I think it goes a long way. And that's like one of those things that with the George Fant situation, I just think we got to have kid gloves. We got to be careful. I agree with the upgrade. Like we just said, bring in the players, the coaches will sort it out. At the same time, you do have to consider things like that. He was a voted in leader on this team. So I just think you gotta factor that into your decision-making process when you're making decisions like this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The potential is there, like you said. First-year starter. He'd been a swing guy before that. He was average on his best days. I mean, unfortunately, the majority of time he was a little below average. You would hope he'd stay average, throughout. That wouldn't be bad. But
who's that? I'm sorry, I missed you. Who?
George Fant.
Oh,
George
okay,
Fant.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
And like you said, it was his first year starting. And he was okay for a decent amount of games. And he's very athletic. And like you said, he was voted as a captain. So, that's definitely,
Yeah, and we just got to factor that stuff in. It's like, like when you're looking at all these players that we have, Joe Douglas made it a point to collect leaders, like key team captains, as we say. And it's that's when, the result of stuff like that is what we're seeing in OTAs, over 80 guys showing up because they're all captains. They're all used to being like kind of looked at, and they have that work ethic and that team-oriented approach. And so when you collect guys like that, I think these are the types of mindsets that you're going to see, with guys wanting to be, in support of one another. Did you see the videos coming out of Picture Day with the team and busting?
I did.
Dude, how great were they? Did you and that kind of dovetails with the Islanders game thing. It's like these guys, for the first time in a long time, actually feel like they might just be friends with each other. They might just like each other. They have the comfort level to kind of bust chops and make each other laugh and things like that. And again, I just don't recall seeing that, man. And for the longest time, maybe you could correct me, but I don't recall. It just doesn't seem normal. Like I'm like, it's like my heart is warmed when ABT is making Zach Wilson laugh when he's taking the picture, or Becton is making fun of Quinnen Williams trying to make his mean face and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know, man. It's very
you're right. You're right, man. The camaraderie is there, and that's what's important. I mean, you're a team. You're working together. You want to win for each other. You mentioned before, leadership trickles down. That's just how it works. And good quality traits trickle down. I mean, with Adam Gase, the personality he had, maybe that could explain the situation. Robert Saleh is open. He's dynamic. He's easy to, the players like to engage with him. He's motivating, and that's what you're seeing. But leadership literally does trickle down. Trickles from Joe Douglas to Robert Saleh down to those players. Like we said, bringing guys that love football, want to play. But you mentioned before with the camaraderie, even with Zach Wilson, before OTAs even started, I remember he was at somebody's house with Michael Carter and Brandon Echols and a couple of the other rookies. He had catches he was doing with them, like on his own. He was getting together with them. Like he was building relationships. Like we were watching this stuff on Instagram, on Twitter. Like that's what you want to see.
Yeah, man. I think like they're aware. They're aware of what it takes to kind of, rise above just being a team. Like there has to be that that concern about your teammates, about your brothers, about doing it for each other as opposed to what am I getting paid, or even guys that, in my opinion, could have been on the field but weren't because of injury and things like that. Like there's a lot of me in the NFL these days, and I get it. I do. I get it. But it's real nice to see a collection of guys that seem to, for the moment, care about one another. And that's what we've been missing around here, Harrison. That's one of the big things, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you, bro. And, just like you said, camaraderie, wanting to be here, re-signing your own players, keeping them around. I think Joe Douglas has gotten a bad stigma with that, where people think, he doesn't re-sign his guys, and that's not true. He's only been here a short amount of time. Those guys mostly aren't his guys, but he tries to retain the good ones, like Marcus May. He's trying to make it work. I think we're going to start to see career Jets. I mean, back to those days of guys that we had as career Jets. I mean, Elijah Moore will hopefully be a career Jet. Zach Wilson.
Great?
That's what we're hoping, man. Superstars and career Jets. That shows,
I'm telling you,
like what you were saying.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, man. I haven't kind of verbalized it that way yet, but I completely agree, man. It's like having guys that are here more than 3 or 4 years, having guys like the Mo Lewises, like the Sean Ellison, Kyle Cliftons, and all Curtis Martin, all these guys that were just here for their career. They were career Jets, and we've been missing that, man. Guys that value not only their own careers and their teammates, but the name on the front of that jersey, like the team, the community, the atmosphere, like the area, like having pride, like I'm a New York Jet. And we've been missing that, man. I think that might just start to see that again, especially with a guy like Saleh. If Saleh can be here, let's say just for a round number, 10 years. Let's say Saleh's a good coach and he ends up being here for 10 years, and we start getting identity of him. I think that it's very realistic to think that guys will want to be part of the New York Jets, and that's very different.
You're right, and it's happening right now, and that was the beauty of it. For the longest time, people didn't want to come here. That was the joke, the LOL Jet narrative. That was part of it. That players don't want to play for us. I mean, I think back to the best example is Anthony freaking Barr. We have a guy that literally leverages our team just to get a better contract from his own team. Had no intention with signing with the Jets. No intention whatsoever. But just leveraged us because people didn't want to come here. But we saw when Joe Douglas first came around, and now with Robert Saleh. Guys like Carl Lawson, Corey Davis. The list goes on and on. They all literally said, I came here to play for Robert Saleh. That's what we're building. And you mentioned the 10 years. Joe Douglas took a 6-year deal. Robert Saleh took a 6-year deal. Joe said it when they hired him. And I got into it, all into it in that GM podcast. I did the one, Why Joe's Great. It was the last one I did last Monday, if you guys want to check it out. When they hired him, the draft and free agency was already done. Talk about being brought into a dysfunctional organization. He's brought into a dysfunctional organization at a dysfunctional time. Could you imagine that interview? It's okay, the draft is done. Free agency is done. The team is built. Everybody who's worthwhile is somewhere else. Do you want this heaping pile of crap? Would you
come on over? Come on over.
And that's why he's I'm 6 years. This is, if it's going to be done right, it's not going to be quick. And he knew that. So, and that's what he's doing. Man. He's been putting the right pieces in place. And I still think his first draft was excellent. I think his next draft is even better. This draft, I love every pick. There's not a single pick I don't like in this draft. I love them all. I have to reevaluate.
It's so funny that, that you say it that way with when he came over here, how dysfunctional we really were. Hey, don't you want to lead this organization? But it's when you look at, and then when people start to say things like the Ryan Khalil signing was a flop, and he,
it made sense, and I talked about that. It made a lot of sense because you have to think of it again from that perspective. Free agency and the draft had already happened. That was the whole thing I went into. He's been brought into this impossible situation, and this is the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. Joe Douglas could have phoned it in. Joe Douglas could have been like, well, they put me in this impossible situation. This isn't my team. No one's going to fault me if they suck because I didn't put this team together. He could have washed his hands of it, done jack shit, gone bad, and tanked for a good draft pick. That's not what he did. He tried. He brought in a lot of cornerbacks. He brought in a lot of kickers. He brought in Ryan Khalil, where, again, no one was available. So, like, they weren't great signings, but in the idea of that situation, it's great. It shows that he's not going to phone it in. He tried to do something. He tried to put together what he would view as his team because he's being brought in. That's not his team. The prior GM built that. Everyone evaluates people differently. We see, players in people's mock drafts 4 rounds from each other because everyone looks at talent differently. That wasn't his team. He had to come in and with free agency and the draft already done, try to build his team. And he could have not. He could have been like, you know what, screw it. Doesn't matter. They're not going to fault me. Let's get a great draft pick. But that's not what he did. And I think he doesn't get enough credit for that's not what he did.
Right. And it's funny because, and to just kind of, connect to what you're saying, it's like that Ryan Khalil being used as an example, what he did to get him on the team should be lauded. It's like, dude, you know how impressive that is that he literally talked a Pro Bowl center off the couch because there was literally no one available. No one available. He talked a guy off the couch. Now, it didn't work, but you can't, dude, you should applaud the fact that he was able to accomplish that. What was it, a month on the job at that point or whatever it was? Yeah. So it's like, yeah, man, I think Joe Douglas really, he's done an amazing job. If you look at the team 2 years ago and what it is today, there is so little that looks the same. Guys like Crowder and May, and that's about it. I mean, we have a handful of guys, Fadukasi, Quinn, and Williams. There's a small handful of guys that are still here, and the entire face of the organization has changed, obviously, with coaching and everything else. But going into next year, man, we have 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 3 fifths, 3 sixths. It's incredible what we still have on deck, retool. And just like you said, I think last year's draft was fantastic. I do not love every pick. I don't. But overall, of what, last year? You liked every pick?
Oh, last year. I know you disagree. Yeah. I said last year that after the first draft, I was like, okay, it's official for all the reasons I'd said. This guy's a great GM. You'll see it eventually, which people are seeing now. I liked all but 2 picks. I was consistent with it. I didn't like Lamichael Pirine and Jabari Zuniga. And I've been saying this I don't hate them. Like, I don't hate them as players. I just felt like they were taken too high. There were other players I liked at that positional value. If they would have been taken in the 5th or 6th, then I would have been better with those picks. But other than that, I loved every pick. He killed it. Bryce Hall was unbelievable. That was a guy on my board. I thought he was slept on. I've been saying since we drafted him, like, this guy's going to be a starter. Like, I didn't think it was going to be – I didn't think he'd be a CB1 that quick. But I was like, this dude's a starter. Like, this guy's going to be really good.
Yeah, it's really funny because I thought, as you know, I like Lamichael Pirine, but I thought he was taken early as well. I was looking at him in the late 4th, 5th. That's where I wanted him if we were going to take him, but that's where I thought he should have went. But the thing is, what's funny about it is I thought Bryce Hall should have been a 3rd. So it's like,
I'm with you. I had Hall late 3rd, 4th. I'm 100% with you.
Yeah. So if we would have taken Hall with a 3rd or 4th even, and then got Lamichael Pirine in the 5th, we would have the same players, but everybody would feel better about it. So it's like, it's a weird thing that happens. It's like,
that's true. I would actually, that's very true. I would feel better about that.
Isn't that funny? It's funny.
Well, a lot of people didn't know Hall going in, but I'm a big ACC guy. I watch a lot of ACC football. So I loved him at Virginia. Like, I'm like, this kid, he's it.
Yeah,
like he's what you want.
I lived in Charlottesville, so that's where UVA is. So UVA is everything in Charlottesville. I mean, and I worked over at the hospital, over at the college, and I was there all the time. And Bryce Hall was king of the thing that was king in Charlottesville. And even though when he went down, it was like the whole city took a breath, like, oh man, because he was looking like he could fight to be arguably a 1st-round pick. Probably a 2nd, but I
couldn't agree. No, I was saying that actually. I was saying that when he played, he looked like a 1st-round pick with 1st-round potential, but because of injury. And it's interesting. A lot of people forget this. The same things were said about Bless Austin. Was the same reason I liked him a lot too. He had injury in college, but when he played, he looked like a legit 1st, 2nd rounder.
Yeah, incredible. And the fact is, man, he stayed pretty healthy. I mean, I don't want to jinx the poor guy, but it's like, that first year they brought him on real slow, but he hasn't been injured in the same way as he was in college. 2 years, he basically lost the entire season because of injuries. And it's like, so I'm interested in Blesson Austin. I'm not done with him. I'm not really high on him. Like, I'm not yelling Blesson Austin is our guy, but I do think he's still in the conversation, man. This is his third year. He has a couple, he has some significant starting time now. I think it's like 18 or 19 games of starting. So he's got some nice meat under his feet there. And I think that if we have a pass rush, and we have guys like Blesson Austin and Bryce Hall out there, those guys really could surprise if the schematic fit is to their benefit. I think that we might be delighted with what we see with our cornerbacks. I don't think we're quite as thin as a lot of people are panicking. I think it's one of the weak areas of our team, but I don't think it's quite as thin as a lot of people think it is. And Bless Austin's one of the reasons I think I feel that way.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. I think that was the perfect way to put it. Like, it's not the best, but it's not as bad as everyone's making it out to be. But it is the weakest part of our team. And I think that's why people are freaking out. Because our team is actually, thanks to Joe Douglas, pretty damn stacked right now. We're pretty damn stacked.
Crazy.
So we're looking at corner and we're like, it's not great, but it's not that bad. Because I point out with Hall, like you were just saying, Bryce Hall looked like a CB1 last year with Adam Gase in a bad system on a bad defense. Like, if that's how he looked then, how can he look with Robert Saleh? Like, the sky's the freaking limit for this kid. Especially because you said you watched him a lot of Virginia. He thrived in zone coverage. Like, this kid was a zone coverage master. Like, watching the quarterback, anticipating the receiver, was unbelievable. But his question was, what is he good in man coverage? Last year, he showed that he was damn good in man coverage. He was a CB1 almost in man coverage. Yeah. But now in Saleh's system, he's going to be back to playing a little bit of both. He's going to be back to doing zone and man. So I think Hall, like, I can't even wait to see what he's going to do. Because when it comes to zone coverage, like, people don't even know.
Yeah, he's an incredibly disciplined and intelligent quarterback. He knows the game of football. He knows how to read what the offense is doing. He's incredibly intelligent. He's able to predict where things are happening, and he does his job too. He's one of those guys, he's not worried about getting the glory. He's totally happy with doing his job, running in and taking the block on, or whatever it is, sealing the edge. He's really good at that, and that's one of the reasons I love him so much. And he's another one of those team captain type guys, man. He's all about the team. Bryce Hall is one of my favorite players, man. I think that if our pass rush is anywhere near what we think it can be, Bryce Hall is going to look like a stud. I'm telling you, man. He's about as good as you need if the pass rush is legit.
I think you just made an outstanding point, because I've been making the same point. People tend to forget that, actually. In a Robert Saleh defense, it's all about getting to the quarterback. I showed it with statistics that in QB hurries, his defense, even in 2020, when all the legit guys were hurt and his sack numbers were low, they were still top of the NFL in QB hurries. Ever since 2017, his team has been like top 5 in QB hurries. His defense is built with getting to the quarterback, causing disruption, making the corners not have to play too deeply, not have to play too hard. The emphasis isn't on coverage. The emphasis is on blitzing, getting to the cornerback, and creating pressure. And man, with our freaking front four, like, man, I am stoked. Like, I am just really stoked with that defensive line that Joe Douglas has put together. Like, I am ready. Like, I have a game that, like, if you want to play, like, I've been playing this game with people that want to get excited about, the sack numbers. Last year, the Jets had 31 sacks. That's it. 31 sacks, which sucks. That's really bad. Now, I have a whole thing I go into with Carl Lawson. The stats are just unreal. Like, the sack numbers are low, but everything else is just ridiculous. Like, 64 QB pressures in one season. That means he gets to the quarterback 4 times a game. He's 4th in the whole league with that. 32 QB hits means he hits the quarterback twice every game. 2nd in the NFL. He tied TJ Watt 1st in the NFL with QB knockdowns. It's not unfair to think that he could get 10 to 15 sacks himself. Like, that dude could just light it up. So you have him. Now you factor in Quinnen Williams and, let's say, John Franklin Myers. Because I think a lot of people want Rankins, but Rankins, people tend to forget, was kind of not that good for the last 4 years. Like, that's why we took a flyer on him. We're hoping he winds up being really good. But, dude, Franklin Myers killed it last year. Like, Franklin Myers was freaking amazing. That dude was unbelievable last year. So I think him and Quinnen together could easily be good for another 15 sacks. Like 7, 8 between the two of them.
Right.
So if you think that's the case, that's 30 sacks right there. That's last year's total
Just like that.
in just 3 guys, just like that, in 3 guys.
Right.
Now you have to factor in Rankins and Bryce Huff and
Vinny Curry.
Exactly. You're talking like 50 to 60 sacks. Like, I don't want to get too like, I'm seeing the Jets like with Salah's defenses with the 49ers, top of the NFL in QB hurries, high sack numbers, high pressure percentages. Like, that's what it's about. And we have guys that can get to the quarterback, like, legitimately.
Yeah, I know. It's really exciting to think, man. And see, like a lot of the time, what's really going on with pass rushing too is that, you know, it really does depend on the mentality and the scheme that's going on the defensive line as well. You know, when you just, you know, let guys loose and they just run at the quarterback, that's all well and good. But when the scheme is intact, that's actually designed to get them to the quarterback on top of their natural ability, a lot more can happen. And I think, you know, Carl Lawson's a really great example of somebody that could legitimately be ready to pop. Like he's always there. He's right there, and his motor, it does not stop, man. He's relentless. So this guy, with just the added touch of a Robert Saleh scheme, you know, managed by Jeff Ulbrich, this could be exactly what he needs to be one of the top sack leaders in the NFL. And man, it's been too damn long for us. I would love to see something like that. And I gotta say, Harrison, I'm not even all that upset about our linebackers if C.J. Mosley can play. If C.J. Mosley actually is who he was supposed to be, if he's 80% of who he was, he's still going to be one of the better linebackers in the league. That linebacking group with Jared Davis, who I'm really high on, by the way, behind the defensive line, like you were just saying, dude, we really might be causing some problems for people. And I think that we could be looking at some surprises.
Yeah, I'm with you, bro. The linebackers psyched the hell out of me because my big take before the draft, everyone was like, we need a corner. We need a corner. I'm like, guys, we need to realize that linebacker is an infinitely bigger need than corner. Like we just talked about, we had Hall. We had Austin. I thought Lamar Jackson wasn't terrible. Like he wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible last year as an undrafted guy. At linebacker, if C.J. Mosley couldn't potentially go or got hurt again, or if Gerard Davis is another flyer like Sheldon Rankins, he's been pretty good in camp, but if he's exactly what he was for the last 4 years, which is bad, we don't have any linebackers. Like, we have 0 linebackers. So I'm like yelling, we need linebackers. We need at least 2 in the draft. Joe got to. And I like Gerard Davis, but man, I am off the wall excited about Jamie Sherwood and Hamza Nasruddin. Like, love those picks ridiculously because my big thing was we needed linebackers. And again, talking about like earlier, we were saying how, you know, Joe Douglas is just so much more brilliant than us. I wasn't looking at safeties to play. I wasn't thinking like that. I wasn't thinking of that beautiful Keanu Neal type, like hybrid linebacker that we wanted. I wasn't thinking like that. I was looking at linebackers that fit a 4-3 system. Like you remember I mentioned Charles Snowden to you. Love that guy. But I wasn't looking at Joe Douglas. I like to say the term. I feel like that dude's playing chess. Like when everyone else is playing checkers. Like he's looking at those Keanu Neal type safeties, those hybrid linebackers. And bro, Sherwood and Nasruddin, like I want to see the 2 of them start. Like the 2 of them for linebackers have unbelievable speed, unbelievable lateral agility, sideline to sideline. When a linebacker plays at the line of scrimmage, they're really just a box safety. These 2 dudes are legit box safeties. They murder quarterbacks. They're going to be in the backfield, disrupting the play, mention their speed, and in coverage, they were good as safeties. As linebackers, they're like borderline elite. Like when you take these guys as safeties and you put them, because that's the thing, you have to reevaluate them in a new position. When you put them as linebackers, elite speed, elite agility, amazing coverage skills, guys that can cover tight ends, guys like we thought freaking Jamal Adams was, which he wasn't. Guys that can actually cover tight ends. Bro, Hamza Nasruddin can cover tight ends.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I'm like I said, it's really going to be interesting to see what's, you know, how this all play. Excuse me, how this all plays out. But I think our starters are going to be C.J. barring injury, of course. But I think it's going to be C.J. Mosley, Jared Davis, and Jamie Sherwood. I think that's in our base set. I think that's going to be who we see on the field. But I'm equally high on Nasruddin, and I'm equally high on Rashid, who we as a rusher, who we got as an undrafted free agent. So like even the second tier of guys that we were able to pull in this offseason have potential at minimum as developmental guys for the pipeline. So if Jared Davis doesn't work out, you're already developing a guy like Nasruddin. You already have Rashid, developing underneath, of course, with Fadukasi and Kyle Phillips and all guys that we didn't even mention. We talked about the defensive line. I'm equally high on those guys, but I think one of the things that Jets fans are going to be surprised by is how incredibly good Jared Davis really is. I mean, when Matt Patricia took over that team, his numbers dipped. And let's not forget, there were numerous players, including Slay, that said, this guy sucks, man. This guy does not know what he's doing. He doesn't know how to talk to anybody.
That's kind of what I was going to say, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, that's really – dude, his rookie year, he had a very good rookie year. His sophomore year was downright studly, and then he fell off a cliff and was put into rotational duty and all that sort of stuff. So he had two really bad years,
Yeah, and I'm hoping, if he pans out, that's freaking great, because it's the same thing with Rankins. Both of those guys were first-round picks back in 2017. They were supposed to be – Rankins was basically supposed to be like Quinnen Williams, and Gerard Davis was supposed to be an outstanding linebacker, sideline to sideline, great speed, great in coverage. It never translated with the Lions, and that's why, I hope it does. Don't get me wrong, I hope it does. But over the last 4 years, the guy's average, PFF is 40-something, like legit average is 40-something, and that really good rookie year was 60-something. So I hope he pans out, but I don't know, man. I'm just super psyched about Sherwood. When we took Sherwood, my immediate thought was well, if we're taking a safety to play linebacker, I kind of wanted Nasruddin. That was the guy I wanted. This dude had 192 tackles in just 2 seasons, almost 100 a season. This dude is a tackle machine. He's a big hitter, great in coverage. I wanted him more than Sherwood. So I am crazy hyped about the potential of those two guys.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. One of the cool things about this, and we talked about it, I don't remember which show I was on, but we were talking about with the wide receivers and with the running. I think you and I even got into it with some people a little bit on about the running backs. One of the things we're going to see is really different for us is we're going to have to make some hard decisions. We're not looking to see which scrub that we hope is going to break out and be somebody like a David Clowney and like just so many guys that we've had in the past. Now we have literally an abundance of skill positions like wide receivers, running backs, in my opinion, defensive linemen. And we're going to have to make some tough decisions, tight end, and let guys go that in years past would have been locks to make the roster, which is, dude, it's a good problem to have. We're usually the ones waiting for the better teams to cut their 6th wide receiver so we could take him so he would be our best wide receiver. That's usually our position in this, No,
you're 100% right, man. And that's exactly correct. It's the perspective you look at it. And I think, again, it comes back to Joe Douglas as the GM. Everything comes back to him. It comes back to, you mentioned McCagnon. In 2015, the guy builds a team through free agency, but he can't draft his way out of a paper bag. So you have minor success, but it's not sustainable. That's the big term that I think people have to realize. It's all about sustainable success. And you can't get sustainable success if you can't draft, if you can't cultivate talent. I joke with guys like McCagnon. If you're McCagnon and Itzik, if you're spending all this money in free agency and you can't draft, you're basically saying, well, I can't talent evaluate for shit. I don't know who anybody is. So I'm going to let the other teams do it for me and then take whoever they let go. That's basically what you're saying. You're I can't do this.
That's what it is, right?
That's the point. That's why we have depth. We have guys that can step up because Joe Douglas knows who to look for. You mentioned undrafted guys. I was huge on Bryce Huff. I couldn't believe Bryce Huff went undrafted. That was my guy. Great. Lit it up in his senior year, was great in the Cotton Bowl. Couldn't believe he went undrafted. We got him and Rashed. And Rashed in 2019 was like an animal. The dude had 20 TFLs and 15 sacks. He broke it.
If he would have come out that year, he would have been a first-round pick. No doubt.
Possibly. It would have been in the conversation. Definitely would have been in the
20
conversation.
TFLs with 14 sacks, I think it was. Dude, that's the numbers that Josh Allen, not the quarterback, when he was coming in the league, that's numbers that he was bringing to the table. If he would have come out and not come back for his senior year, whatever it was, he would have more than likely been a first-round pick, at worst second-round pick. But instead, We got him as an undrafted free agent because he had a significantly different year that year, much more depleted of stats. But yeah, man, these guys, and that's the whole thing. And what you were saying, it's so funny. That's what free agency is. When you have to spend all your money in free agency and bring in these guys, all you're really saying is the guys that I chose at the same time suck. That's what you're saying.
You are. Exactly.
Like, it's all
I
well
say
and
that all the
good.
time.
Yeah, it's all well and good to pluck a guy here and there and you know, find a guy that you think fits and bring him in to kind of round out the roster. But when your team is made up of free agents, all that is an indictment on your ability to find players in the draft. And it's so important to be able to have a pipeline of guys, offensive line, tight ends, wide receivers, defensive line, linebackers, cornerbacks, having guys that are on deck, working in your system. So year 3, when you lose the free agent, which is the way it should be, by the way, when you lose your free agent, this guy steps in and you don't miss a beat. He eats and sleeps and breathes your system because he knows it like the back of his hand. He's been here 3 years. And that's what we're starting to see. A lot of these picks that people are like, I don't know why we took that guy, blah. It's like, dude, he's not even meant to start right now. This guy is pipeline. This guy is going to be developed. We actually have coaches that are known for developing players. Dude, Adam Gase never even hired an offensive coordinator, a real one, or a quarterback coach. How the hell are we going to develop anybody like that? Like, how are we developing guys? We don't even have coaches to do the developing. And it's really sad, man. You know, especially with guys like Sam. But it's like now it's totally different, man. We're going to pipeline guys brought in every year. We have 11 more picks next year, and that's before he moves in deals and does whatever the hell else he wants to do. And a lot of those guys, we're going to be, you know, guys we picked this year are going to be on year 2. His first draft's going to be on year 3. And we're going to see guys that are New York Jets, long-term New York Jets that notice him and are going to be able to step into starting roles. We'll just have that steady pipeline like the Ravens, like the Steelers, like they've been doing for 40 years, man. It's our turn to finally start doing that. That's why I like that Joe Douglas came from the Ravens, man. They're one of the best at it.
That was my whole thing, man. I'm telling you, if you didn't see it, check it out last week. My whole episode, which is an hour and a half of all the reasons that Joe Douglas is great. It started with coming from that oh my God, now my brain stopped working. Ozzie Newsome, wow. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Coming from that Ozzie Newsome school of drafting. The whole thing, I got into all that in the beginning of why I was so excited from the beginning. And you mentioned the spending. That's why in 2020, everyone gave him so much crap for the money he spent. Dude, Maccagnan put us in a black hole. Like, the dude spent $250 million. Like, that's insanity. $250 million. He did. Like, you have to remind yourself of that. Like, that dude spent $250 million in 1 year. Like, in 1 year, on guys that didn't even freaking deserve the money. The Henry Andersons, the Darryl Roberts of the world. Like, it's crazy. On
guys who never even did
that's why when everyone's like, that's why when everyone's like in Joe Douglas, in 2020, he didn't do a lot. Well, again, trying to spend wisely, spent a lot of, money on 1 year guys, prove it deals. Pierre Desir, it actually made sense. Well, the year before he was hurt, but the year before that, the dude was a legit corner. So let's take a 1 year deal, see if he works out. If he doesn't, you cut him and wash your hands. All of his deals were smart. People neglect to realize that he took us from one of the poorest teams, thanks to Maccagnan. This year, we were one of the richest. We were one of the richest teams in the NFL because of that smart free agency, because he's not an idiot. He's planning for the future. It's all about the long term. He was preparing himself for what he did this year.
That's exactly right. And not only were we rich in cap dollars, but we were also rich in draft capital. And the thing is, with the 1 year deals, like at some point, like you have to have guys on the field. So guys like Pierre Desir, it's a great example. It's a lot of, potential reward, very low risk. It's like, guys, we're not going to the Super Bowl this year. We're not. I need guys on the field while I can draft my players and build this team. Pierre Desir, if he played lights out, great. If not, go. And my guys are starting to be here. Bryce Hall's on the field. Lamar Jackson got some field time. Javelin Guidry got some playing time. So let's see what my guys have. And until then, I'm just going to plug 1 year guys in. Like Jared Davis is a great example. If he busts out, it's no harm, no foul, dude. We got Nasruddin, we got Jamie and Sherwood. We have young guys in the house. If he works out, great. You found a guy for chump change on the scrap heap almost. And it's like, that's what the 1-year deals are. And it's like, I think they're brilliant. People, look at it from the other lens. And a lot of times they say Joe Douglas really doesn't know what he's doing. He's drafting guys that are kind of scrubby. I see it completely different. I think it's brilliant, man. And I love it.
I'm with you, man. 100%. I'm with you. I'm actually trying to find it right now because I can't remember who tweeted it, but somebody, when I was tweeting about you coming on the show, tweeted back to me and they said they wanted me to ask you about Javelin Guidry because they said that you and me have different opinions because I'm really high on Javelin Guidry. So I'm guessing you're not as high.
I'm not at all. And we talked about it a little bit when we were together. I believe it was the Weapons Hot show that night. But yeah, my whole thing with Javelin Guidry, like when we do, when we have the undrafted free agent class, like a lot of the guys, interestingly enough, with Joe Douglas, more so than usual, there are a lot of players that I really like that he's grabbing on the scrap heap. Not scrap heap, on the undrafted free agent class. With Javelin Guidry, I didn't know much about him in college. So what I did was I studied him for quite a lot of time. I watched 2 full game tapes of him. I read all the scouting reports. And what I came away with Javelin Guidry was he's super fast, but he's a feast or famine guy. And the word that I use to describe him is that he's a pussy. He shies away from tackles. He's one of those guys that.
Did you feel like that last year? Because I didn't think so.
Yeah,
I thought the dude was making tackles.
Good. He gave up 12. Listen, he had 12 passes thrown his way. Guess how many completions there were? 12. So I'm not.
Then why is he rated so high? Because that's the thing. Like,
I don't know.
That's the big argument with me because Brian Poole was one of the better slot corners in the NFL. Like when he was playing, he was. And I felt
why
like
isn't anybody signing him?
Well, that's the thing, because I felt like when Poole came out, Guidry came in, and I didn't feel like the team missed a beat. Like, I thought they played just as good. And that's a testament, again, to a guy coming in as an undrafted guy for a guy who was one of the best in the league at his position. They didn't miss a beat. And if you look at what PFF graded last year, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I know Poole's PFF coverage grade was 77 point something. Guidry's was 73 point something. And from what I saw, I liked him. I thought he was good in coverage.
Yeah. Look, in truth, I thought that he didn't play all that poorly, but I don't like him as a long-term prospect. I just, there were too many times where I thought that he ducked the tackle. He's one of those guys that's there in coverage. Do you remember Ray Mickens? Remember Ray Mickens, little tiny Ray Mickens? He was 5'7".
Name sounds really familiar.
He was our slot cornerback for 7 years. And he was one of those guys that you just couldn't cut because he's such a feisty guy. And he was known for getting tons and tons of tackles, and it looked really good. But the problem was that he was so short that he couldn't stop anybody from catching the ball. He was right there. You couldn't lose him. He was tenacious, and he was so fast. And he would stay with everybody, and he would make the tackle immediately. But the problem was everybody caught it. And so he gave up tons of receptions because of that. Javelin Guidry's the same thing, man. It's again, I thought he played okay, but I don't like him as a long-term prospect. He had 12 passes thrown his way, and it might be 14 or it might be 11, but I'm pretty sure it's 12. They were thrown his way, and all of them were completions. So I don't know what PFF is grading, or how they're grading it, but he gave up 12 receptions on 12 passes to his guy. So yeah, I'm just not. I'd rather see Michael Carter, Eccles, some of those guys in the slot rather than Javelin Guidry. I mean, he's super fast, so that's something. But he's just not a guy I like that much.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, honestly, I feel the different. I mean, I liked what I saw in him. But you mentioned before the speed. I mean, I think that's a big key because I talked about that when we drafted these guys. Joe Douglas clearly has a type because if you look at Javelin Guidry, he's very physical for a guy his size because he's about 5'11", 190. He excels in man coverage and runs a 4.29 40. Now, if you look at Michael Carter II, the DB out of Duke, well, he also is 5'11", 190. He's also very physical for his size. He also thrives in man coverage, and he runs a 4.3 40. And then you look at Brandon Eccles. He's 5'11", 180. He's also considered, you're noticing a trend, very physical for his size, excels in man coverage, and runs a 4.3 440. So Joe clearly has a type. with those kind of interior cornerbacks.
Yeah. Yeah, his type, it's like, it's funny because this is the first year, like when you look at Joe Douglas's type on wide receivers too, it's like everybody he brought in was 6'2" and above, every single wide receiver until this year with Elijah Moore. And it's like, so you're starting to see kind of a little break from the foundational kind of, Joe Douglas wanted to bring in a lot of what he sees as core players, core types. And now he's starting to kind of sprinkle in a little bit different aspects. And dude, the truth is, man, the guy's only been here 2 years. We still don't we don't even really know this guy yet. We have 2 years, but we don't know what his ultimate plan is yet because he doesn't tell anybody anything. And all of our beat writers and everybody, they don't know anything. Like, look at the Morgan Moses thing. We didn't know that he was coming. We know that he left. Yeah. That's how we found out.
That's how it's supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to be. It's like a ship, man. It's like a ship. Your ship needs to be watertight. If your ship's not watertight, you're going down. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
You're on the ocean. You got holes in your ship. It's over.
That's exactly right. Loose lips sink ships, man. And so it's just an interesting thing, how well these secrets, if you will, but all the plans are being kind of kept close to the vest because we're not used to seeing that, man. Remember when during the Rex years we found out like Manish Mehta had an inside guy, and we found out afterwards it was actually Rex. Like the guy giving him,
which makes so much sense, bro. That just makes so much sense. Rex is just sitting there. He's like, dude, I can't wait to stir shit up. Like, I can see it, like, its personality. It works. He's like, this is going to be great.
That's right. You'll see. I know what I'm doing. But it's like, it's funny. Everybody was wondering, like, who's the leak? The leak is Rex, man. He's the one calling press on his own plans. So it's a funny thing, man. And I think, like, we have adults in the organization. Like, they know what to say. And at the same time, we're not getting those standard stock answers. Like, when you listen to Robert Saleh's press conferences, you actually feel like he's telling you something. I felt the same way with Mike LaFleur. I felt the same way with Jeff Ulbrich. Instead, like Gase and Bowles, they would give you 2-word answers, or like, I don't know, I got to look at the tape. Or, hey, we're trying to improve, we got to do better at what. It's like all standard stock stuff. I don't feel that way with this organization. So at the same time as they're doing a good job with like keeping everything close to the vest, when they talk to you, they're still able to keep your interest. They're still able to give you information, which I think is really a skill, man, to not give anything away, but still be able to tell you stuff. And I've been enjoying it, man. I'm eating it up. I'm loving these guys. So far, and I just hope it translates, Harrison. Like, I really do. I would be so brokenhearted if this one doesn't work, but I really think so far so good, man. I'm delighted with everything I'm seeing. I wish we got a little bit more on Kenny Yeboah. I saw somebody asked about Kenny Yeboah in the chat.
Someone asked about him. Unfortunately, we haven't heard much. And what's interesting is we've heard from Chris Herndon, who's made a lot of drops, unfortunately. But what's also interesting, we've heard receptions from Tyler Kroft. Like, Tyler Kroft apparently is making as much noise at tight end as Herndon is. And Herndon has a lot of drops. Plus, when it comes to blockers, there's no comparison. Tyler Kroft is a superior blocker. So if Kroft is, making as much noise in camp as Herndon is, man, I'm kind of on the opinion of let's see what Kroft can do at starting tight end. Like, that dude can block. So
think about this, right? Tyler Kroft is known as a ferocious blocker. He's been called numerous times elite. He's an elite blocking tight end.
Helps your offensive line.
His best year in receiving was 42 receptions for the Cincinnati Bengals. It was like three years ago, whatever it was, 2018. Chris Herndon's best year was 39 receptions. So think about that. Tyler Kroft the catching is almost, something else he does with his skill set. Chris Herndon, everybody seems to think that he's going to be this great pass catching tight end. His best year isn't even what Tyler Kroft's was. So you know what? You want to hear my hot take? This is my hot take right now.
You're with me, Kroft in there?
Well, no, I think that because we're only going to be able to keep 3 tight ends at most if they do some sort of hybrid weird thing with Westco as a fullback, H-back kind of thing. I think that Chris Herndon is not going to make the final roster. That's what I think. I think it'll be Tyler Kroft, Ryan Griffin, Westco, and Yeboah. That's what I think.
Oh, man, you and Frank. It's so funny. He said the same thing. I just threw it up there. You guys are
Oh, look
connected
at
right
that.
now. You
Yeah.
guys are thinking it.
Markopolos
You guys are on
knows
the
his
same
stuff,
page
man.
about it. I mean, I just don't see it
Markopolos knows.
because you want receiving options at tight end, and so far Yeboah hasn't done anything, and he's an undrafted guy, so God forbid he could be. I feel like if he's stashed on the practice squad, somebody would steal him. That's my
I think
personal
so, too.
opinion. I think so, but he hasn't made noise. So we talked before, about this unique position we're in. We need to analyze, instead of, finding that guy, who is going to get cut. And we like blockers. So I feel like that's why Trayvon Wesco's position is more secure, in my opinion, because I think he, like Croft, is underappreciated as a blocker.
Yeah. And look, and Wesco and Croft are underrated as far as pass catching ability, too.
That is true.
And look, the tight end that's making the most noise in camp is Ryan Griffin, of all people. So this is the first year since, when we got him and he had that really good campaign, in 2019, and Joe Douglas extended him, and then he was injured like a week or two later. He has not been 100% since then. So this camp is the first time that we're seeing him back as the guy that we extended. So who knows, man? Ryan Griffin doesn't want to let his job go. So I would say that Herndon better snap the hell out of it if he wants to keep his job. But I could see the Jets actually trading him for some chump change and just giving him to a team that needs a tight end, because we got some guys working their ass off. And I don't know if Herndon is that type. I don't know if Herndon is the Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh type. These guys that just go to work and put their nose to the grindstone all day long. I just don't know if that's Chris Herndon. And like you said, with the drops that are coming out of camp, I don't know, man. Herndon, Croft, and then you got all the potential in Yeboah. And then obviously Trevon Wesco. I don't see a place for Herndon, man. And I don't think we need him. Like you said, if we're going to focus on blocking and having these guys really take care of the running game, and we got the receivers, man.
Which is important because we said before, I mean, the left side of that line, man, with Becton and AVT is set. But center, whether we want to admit it or not, is kind of iffy, because even though Connor McGovern was, as everyone likes to quote, a top 10 center for half the season, he was dog shit for the other half the season. We have to accept that. So center is more of a question mark than we want to admit or not. We don't know who the right guard is. Fant can be average to below average. So blocking tight ends make a difference, having those guys there.
Absolutely do.
And I admit, man, I totally forgot about Ryan Griffin. Like, I just put him out of my mind. And I think it's because I joke about it. He rubbed me the wrong way. Like, he's playing well right now. Like, he's back to where he's supposed to be. But I don't know if you remember, like, he got his big deal. He got his big money. He got his extension. Then he got hurt. Then, like, the next interview he had, I don't know if you remember, the first thing out of his mouth was, "I don't think I'll ever be the same." That was the first thing out of his mouth.
Yeah.
First thing. And that just, like, I'm like, okay, so we just paid you $11 million. You haven't played since the extension, and the first thing you're going to say to fans is, "I will never be the same." So I always kind of like, I hope he's back to 100 now, but that was kind of my thing with Ryan Griffin. I was like, to hell with him, because that just rubbed me the wrong way. Like, you don't say that. You don't go the day after you got paid, like, "I'll never be the same. I'll never be 100 again. Thanks for the money."
Yeah. I vaguely remember that. I don't know. For all we know, with this damn beat we have, they could have taken it out of context and just used a clip or something. Who knows?
That's true.
But the good news is that he's been really, he's making a name for himself in camp. And the thing we have to remember with a lot of these guys, and this is what I was saying about Crowder, I really hope that he got in camp. I'm real happy to see what happened today. But I was hoping that he got here, because the thing we have to remember is that all these guys, even though there's tape, they have not spent time with our players. So this is their first time with our players, whether it's, Marcus May, Jamison Crowder, Trevon Wesco, Ryan Griffin. They have to be on the field with this coaching staff so they can see what it is that you really are made of. And Ryan Griffin, man, last year it can just be an anomaly. It could just be whatever. Goodbye, gone. That was Adam Gase. I'm here now, and this is who I am. And they could fall in love with it, man, because so far, so good. He's made a couple very impressive catches, a few of which we actually got some film on, which was nice to see. Some sideline stuff, and really, a lot of, needing a lot of focus and attention. So, hey, man, again, if Chris Herndon doesn't know that he needs to really show off this shit, dropping passes, dude, you have no wiggle room. I would not be surprised if he is either traded for like a 7th kind of a thing, or even flat out released.
Jump change.
If
it's released, that's a slap in the face, because this is a contract year. Like a player in a contract year, you expect to get the best from them. So if you get
Right.
released in a contract year, man, that is like a slap across the face. Like
It
we have
is.
so little faith in you. We don't even think you can perform when the freaking your back's against the wall.
That's right. You suck so bad. We're just gonna let you go. Like Ja'Kai,
That's
we're gonna
amazing.
Ja'Kai polite your ass.
Shut your goddamn mouth. Bro, that guy's like, wait a minute, wait, did I get drafted? Wait a minute, hold up.
Yeah, wait a minute. I was supposed to play
Wait.
football.
Man, that's
Think about how bad he had to be. Think about whatever that was. How bad he had to be for Joe Douglas to say, "No, you're not even making the final 50."
that quick. Yeah, I mean, he was a
third round pick,
third round draft
a high
pick.
third,
Yeah,
a high third. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But it's just such a funny thing, Mike Maccagnan, man. He uses that third overall pick for Quinnen Williams, which, look, I'm glad he's here now. But at the time, he was not the guy that this team needed. We could
I
have
wanted
done
Josh
so
Allen.
much more.
That was my
So did
guy.
I.
Like
I really
times
wanted.
I wanted Josh Allen.
I wanted
I'm
to
happy with
trade
Quinnen
back.
now.
I wanted to trade back, gain a second and a third or something like that, and grab an offensive lineman. I was really big on Jonah Williams as well as Bradbury, the center. I really liked him a whole bunch. But if not that, if we were going to stay put at 3, Josh Allen was the pick, man. And we haven't had an edge rusher in forever, and we take Quinnen Williams. So I was upset then. But then we had no second, and then the next pick is Ja'Kai Polite. I was like, this guy, dude, what the fuck? Like, what is he doing? I don't understand it. Like, you or I or anybody in the chat right now, if we were in charge of a draft, there's no way we could be as bad as that guy.
We're in the later round picks. Like, yeah. That was why, like I was saying, Joe was my guy, because through Itzik to Maccagnan, like I do my own draft eval. That's a big thing with me. So when the Jets are up to a pick, I have a couple of guys in my head that I want, positional guys that I want to go with. Every freaking time, especially with Itzik, it would be somebody I wasn't even thinking of or somebody I didn't even know, or I'm like, I can't believe that, or it's a reach. I was always pissed. I was pissed more often than I wasn't. Then Joe comes around and I'm like, we found the guy.
Yeah.
He's arrived.
Well, just the fact that he's actually a football guy, man. It's like, for so long, like you look at it's even Tannenbaum. With all respect to Tannenbaum, he brought us some good years.
He wasn't the worst. No, yeah, he was not the worst.
Yeah. But he sold our souls. Like that's what he did to have that ability. So there was a time when we were going to have to pay the piper. Numerous drafts. One draft we had 4 picks. One draft we had 3 picks. Like that was living under Tannenbaum, Trader Mike. But he still got us some good years. So you got to give that to him. But John Idzik never should have been a GM. Mike Maccagnan never should have been a GM. Adam Gase never should have been our head coach. And it's like we've had to endure all that stuff. So then when you go and pluck a guy who just was on the Super Bowl champion Eagles and before that spent 14 years or 15 years with under Ozzie Newsome, one of the best franchises in the NFL.
One of the greatest GMs in the history of the sport.
Absolutely. Arguably
I went through the whole thing, and that was the beginning of my episode. Literally 10 minutes of all the reasons that Ozzie Newsome, I mean, just his drafts, like the players, just Ray Lewis, Jonathan Ogden, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs.
Right.
And the other thing I pointed out, back in 2000 when they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's on and on. Right.
Back in 2000 when they won the Super Bowl, their defensive line coach was Rex Ryan, man. Ryan was their D-line coach back then.
And want to hear something funny? I used to run comedy shows. Tony Siragusa owned a restaurant in the next town over from me, and I used to run comedy shows there. And he would come and hang out, and I used to hang out with Tony Siragusa all the time, and he would come and watch us perform and everything. He's one of the coolest dudes ever, man. Loved comedy. He had this big, he was like, he didn't care about
That's
laughing.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was the best, man. I got to hang out with him a whole bunch. But yeah, man, that was talk about some great teams, huh? And see, they're the kind of team that when you take their players in free agency, there's a guy waiting that's going to be just as good as the guy that just left.
Exactly.
And
just like we were talking about before, the cultivating
That's
talent.
the pipe. Exactly, dude.
Yeah.
And that's what we have sorely been missing. And Jets fans, we don't know that you don't have to, buy your way into a winning organization in free agency. Like, we're just not used to it here. This is the right way to build a team. Get rid of expensive guys for draft capital, like he did with Jamal Adams, and even with Sam Darnold and some other guys, some late round pick guys. Use those picks to get guys in that are going to either start right away or be developmental. The guys the mentality that you want your organization to be made up of, and just build your team. When it's time for them to get paid, you make a decision on who stays, and whoever goes, you get a comp pick, and the next guy comes up and replaces them. It's really not rocket science, man. And the fact that we're finally seeing it here for guys like us who just know every year, we're like, what are they doing? We finally have a GM that's doing it the right way. And I couldn't be happier, Harrison, really. I mean, I don't love it all, but I love about 94% of it. And I'm pretty psyched right now.
No, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. And this has been great because, I mean, I'm looking at it now. We're an hour 20 in, and we haven't even touched the agenda yet. we haven't even talked about OTAs or Crowder or any of that. We're just talking Jets football, man. And that's the beauty of it. That's what it is, just chatting it out. There's so much to talk about.
Right. We just started talking. Look at.
Yeah, but just going into the agenda a little bit, hour and 20 minutes in, there was a big story I wanted to bring up out of OTAs. And I don't know if everyone had seen it because it was actually Connor Hughes responding. Like, he didn't tweet this out. It was a response on a tweet that I had made. And it was like breaking news. Like, he legitimately released breaking news. So like, this was big and I wanted to get into this. So when OTAs had first started, we were under the impression that Denzel Mims wasn't running with the ones because he was hurt. That was what we were told. He's injured. He's not playing. But another thing I've been doing, I actually started doing exclusives with DJ Bieniemy, the new guy with Daily News. So he actually confirmed it because I asked him about it. Him and Hughes said the exact same thing, identical same thing. They said that ever since Mims has been healthy, he has still consistently run with the twos, and Keelan Cole has continued to run with the ones. Then so when Hughes, because I was like, saying, Mims is my guy. Like, I can't believe Joe Douglas is ready to call it quits that quick. Hughes replied and dropped a bomb. I didn't know this. This is breaking news. You said that the Jets have been actively trying to acquire Keelan Cole for the past 2 years. They have been actively trying to acquire him from the Jaguars, but the Jaguars didn't want to part with him because they knew how freaking good he was. So I keep thinking, Mims was his guy. Like, he just drafted him in the second round last year. Like, but at the same time, Keelan Cole is obviously then his guy because he's been trying to get this guy for 2 years. And DJ and Hughes both said the same thing. They said that in this system with Robert Saleh, precision route running is key. That's what they said, that it's important to be a precise route runner, that route running is the name of the game. Corey Davis is that. Elijah Moore is that, and then some. But they said that Mims is, quote unquote, more of a linear player, and that Keelan Cole is an infinitely better route runner. And they're saying that it's not a coincidence that Mims is running with the twos, and that's what they think is legitimately going to happen.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I mean, look, and this is kind of like what we were talking about with the offensive linemen. In truth, even though we all have players we like and then guys we don't like, when it comes down to it, we just want the guys that are going to give us the best chance to win to be on the field. Whoever that is, if it's a guy that nobody ever heard of and he beats out everybody, who cares? If it's Wayne Corbett, nobody knew who Wayne Corbett was, and he came into the scene and was one of our best receivers. Good. I don't care. Now, I happen to like Denzel Mims a whole bunch. I love them coming out, all that sort of stuff. But if Keelan Cole is really blowing him out of the water, then so be it. And it's one of those things, too, though. What Chris Herndon never really got was somebody to push him, to let him know, look, you're not just going to be handed this job. And I don't think it served him well. With Denzel Mims, it's a good thing that he's being shown, like, yeah, you have all this kind of hoopla about you. You're 6'3", 4'3", great hands, all this sort of stuff. But guess what? You're running with the twos. It might be time to work a little bit harder and kind of develop your craft even more. That could be a very, very good thing for Denzel Mims to know that it's not just going to be handed to him. And I love the idea that competition is the name of the game and that every position has competition out of it. I think that's really great, and I couldn't be happier to hear it. And I'm not happy to that Mims would if he doesn't rise to the occasion. But hey, man, if he's got to work for it, I think good.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I agree 100%. The competition is crucial. Competition breeds success, and Mims shouldn't be handed it. So I still love Mims. Like I'm a big Mims fan. That was kind of like my article I'd written. I wrote an article on this on my website as well, takeflightmedia.org. I was torn on it a little bit because Mims was my guy. Like last year, I felt like when he played, he legitimately looked like a wide receiver one at times. He made unbelievable catches. I thought he wasn't a bad route runner. He's got elite speed, great hands, and he was hurt a lot last year. Most rookies are banged up. He hurt both of his hamstrings, which are lingering injuries. He was supposed to be a first-round pick. So I definitely thought he was going to be the guy. But, I mean, like you said, if Keelan Cole wants to be the guy, kind of like I was saying before, get it. Like, come get it. Like, if you want to come out and have 1,000 yards, bring it. Like, we want that.
Wrong with that.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's right. Imagine this, going from having guys like Hogan and Malloy starting week 1 for us. If we go to a place where Denzel Mims is wide receiver 4, dude, we're not doing so bad. You know what I mean? If Denzel Mims is the guy that comes off the bench, then we're okay. And I have no problem with that. Like, I'm not emotionally attached to anybody at this point. It's really come down to, they're going to go into camp. They're going to fight each other for these positions, and the best guy wins. If he doesn't put up when he gets on the field, next guy up, and that's the way it goes. And Denzel Mims needs to know that, look, you have all the potential in the world, you have all the opportunity in the world, but Keelan Cole isn't just going to let you beat him. Okay, so you need to work. And I think that's a good
thing. And Keelan Cole made some great catches too. I've been tweeting him out. I've noticed, Keelan Cole's always been like a wide receiver 2-3, but he's made those catches, man, that like just give you like the idea of, can this kid be really special? Like he's made some unbelievable catches.
He's only a 1-year deal, right? Isn't he? Is he a 1-year deal?
I think he's only a 1-year deal. I'm pretty confident he's only a 1-year deal. But hey, again, like if he lights it up, if he wants to be the guy, an extension's in your future.
There you go. Week 8, we'll give you the big bucks, man. Just show up.
Yeah. So we talked about OTAs a little bit. Some people, we talked about corner a little while ago. Obviously, I think Hall's going to be the number 1. You mentioned that as well. There's potential in Bless Austin, but a guy that's really been stepping up in camp is cornerback Isaiah Dunn. So Isaiah Dunn is a corner out of Oregon State. He was undrafted, but what's unique about him is he's the highest paid undrafted cornerback ever. No one's ever been that paid as a high undrafted corner. So that means something right there. Now, when you look at him in college at Oregon State, he wasn't that good. But then again, if you look at Oregon State in general, they weren't that good. They were getting like 1-2 wins a season. So I'm thinking or hoping, maybe like Joe Douglas is, that maybe it comes down to, coaching, or he didn't unlock his potential, because the dude's fast for his size. He's big. He's the right size you want in an outside corner. I think he's like 6'1", 190 something, but he's fast, he's quick, and he's pretty good in coverage. In fact, I went back to his high school tape because his high school coach had said he was one of the best coverage corners he'd ever coached. I saw some damn good stuff. Like, I get why Joe Douglas likes the guy, and he was running with the ones too. But the guy I really like, I don't know about you, is Jason Pinnock. Like, I love Jason Pinnock.
Do you? Yeah, I don't know. He was one of the picks that I didn't like as much as a lot of the others. But again, with having such a young crop of cornerbacks like the Michael Carters, like Eccles, like Dunn, like Pinnock, and even our vets are young guys. I think it's one of those situations where we're going to have a very legitimately feisty competition, and whoever it is that pops out of there, I do think Hall's a lock, barring injury, for one of those spots. But if it's Pinnock, if it's Dunn, I don't care, man. I just want these guys, whoever it is, to be the guy that can actually play. And hopefully our pass rush helps out this young group a little bit and kind of takes a little bit of pressure off of them, rather than having them, single coverage, on man coverage on guys with no pass rush quarterbacks having all day to pick them apart. Like, that's not a scenario that helps cornerbacks out. So hopefully our pass rush can help it out. And let's see what these young guys got. Man, I like Pinnock more than I did the day that we drafted him. I like his measurables, and supposedly he's been playing playing well in at OTAs as well. But Dunn is surprising to me, because even though he was a priority free agent, he wasn't drafted. So there are some reasons for that. But you could say the same thing about Kenny Yeboah, who I love. I thought he should have been a 3rd or 4th round pick. So who knows? But again, I just like that we have so much competition. So even in these areas that we're weak, Harrison, we still have a lot of bodies that are hungry. These are
Yeah.
leader types. These are blue collar hard worker types. And let's just get them in there and let's see who wins. Let's see who wins and gets their time on the field.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And yes, there's been some shining stories in OTAs. It was Isaiah Dunn was one of them. We mentioned CJ Mosley before, which was a big one because you mentioned, one of my fears was he hadn't played in 2 years and he's getting close to 30 years old. So I don't hate him, but, at the same time, he did get a lot of money. So I'm hoping, that it's not – my big hope was that, it wasn't going to be in vain, and it doesn't look to be that way. Like, he's been lighting it up in camp. From what we hear, he's exactly what we wanted him to be back in 2019, which is great.
Right.
That's what we want, because that was a big fear of mine. We mentioned, Zach Wilson. One guy we didn't mention, though, Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, I didn't want to go wide receiver high. That wasn't on my agenda. I was like, we got Corey Davis, we got Mims, Cole slept on, we got Crowder, which we're going to get into in a couple of minutes. I was like, we don't need to go wide receiver high. Then we took Elijah Moore, and I'm like, okay, cool. It's Elijah Moore. Okay, cool. Because this guy, he's amazing. Elijah Moore is just unbelievable. You can go through the stats he had in college. He just absolutely killed it. One of the best slot receivers in college football last couple of years. Last year in 8 games, he had almost 1,200 yards, second in the NFL. This guy never dropped a red zone target, 25 for 25 in his whole collegiate career. Unbelievable route runner. But in OTAs, he's been everything we wanted him to be. He's looked unbelievable. This kid, man, this kid could be a superstar.
Yeah. Well, and to go back to Mosley real quick, we could not have hired a better coach to kind of hopefully recap.
Oh, we lost GreenBean, guys. I don't know what happened. He got cut out. We lost him. Oh, no. He should be coming back in a sec. So maybe his internet died or somebody pulled the plug. Somebody pulled the plug on his end. I don't know. So we lost GreenBean for a minute. Hopefully he'll be dialing back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send him the link again so he has it. So just bear with me one moment, guys. Just going to get him that. Okay. So hopefully he'll be back any minute. Maybe his internet cut out. Oh, here we go. And he's back.
What happened?
What's going on? I don't know. It's like back in the day, when it cuts out. I thought
No, everybody knows, man. This is my internet's weird. That was actually my fault, though. I was gonna move a window over and I hit the closed window. I was like, oh shit. So
it's all good, man. It's all good. Well, we're glad to have you back.
Yeah, I was trying to look at the chat for a minute before, so I was putting it back to seeing our faces that are live so I can see you. But hey, what are you gonna do?
You might want to keep the chat open. I don't blame you if you don't want to look at me.
No, I like to check on what our chats are, the guys over there are doing. It's tougher when it's just two of us in a format like this. I want to pay attention to what you're saying, but every now and then I just like to look over and see what Rusty Spooner and Markopoulos are talking about. Those guys are all right, man.
Yeah, and they're great. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, Frank, Rusty, I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for making comments. And there's good stuff. Like Rusty's saying right here, he says Moore looks like a combination of Santana, Moss, and Hill. Good type of scary for us. Bad for the league type of scary. Man, that's exactly it. This is the guy. If you want, check out my Twitter. I just been tweeting the stats on this kid. This kid was upper echelon elite in college. AJ Brown even said, who's been unbelievable in the NFL. Remember when Moore was drafted, he was crying. He's like, I love this guy. He said that you're going to be better than me. He's like, you're legit better than me. So that's why I think AJ Moore had 1,000 yards in his rookie season. I tweeted out the other day. I think Elijah Moore is going to be the 24th wide receiver in NFL history to have 1,000 yards in his rookie season.
Ooh, that'd be delightful.
AJ Brown was the 22nd. And hey, Brown says he's better than him.
Right.
So,
and it all depends on whether or not we can scheme him in. You know what I mean? We got to scheme him in, and we got to give Zach Wilson time and the ability to hit him. And that's just it. Look, like a lot of the reports are saying, it's going to be real hard, Crowder or no Crowder. It's going to be hard to keep this young man off the field, isn't it? Elijah Moore.
No, it is. No, it is. Like Zachary says, he asks, well, what's Moore's role going to be? I think in the beginning it's going to be a little slower. And again, we saw Braxton Berrios, who is another name I was going to bring up. He's been lighting it up in OTAs. With Crowder gone, he's been making the most of every opportunity, catching every ball that goes his way, building unbelievable camaraderie with Zach Wilson. But again, it is OTAs. They're just in shorts. The pads aren't on. Crowder's the guy, man. I didn't want to see Crowder go. Like, I really wanted him back. Because Jamison Crowder, people don't remember, man. We remember. He was the second best wide receiver. Sorry, he was the best wide receiver on our team for the last 2 years. And he's been one of the best slot receivers in the NFL since being drafted. The dude's unbelievable. Great receiver. I was hoping they were going to get this worked out. I couldn't even, like, my opinion was like, we looked at Curtis Samuel last year that a lot of Jet fans wanted, and I think that dude got overpaid, and I think Crowder was better. I think Crowder was worth every cent he was making. To me, it made no sense that he was getting restructured. I'm like, the dude's worth $10 million. But restructure, I get it.
Yeah, I get it too. But I feel the same way, man. It's funny, I did it the same thing when the day Sam Darnold got traded. I released my podcast talking about Sam Darnold, and then fucking 2 hours later he's traded. The same thing happened with the restructure. I did a whole deconstruction on the pros and that, all this stuff about Jamison Crowder. And then it's like, I release it and they're like, hey, the Jets restructured. I'm like, great. But it's like, when it comes down to it, I was really hoping that they were able to work it out, because not only was he the best player on the team for us, really, he really was the last 2 years.
On offense, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. But through all that adversity, did we hear peep number one out of him? The guy never complained about anything. He just went to work and did everything we asked him to do, and he did it well. And I would like to believe that we can take care of a guy like that and keep those types of players around. So I'm happy to see that they did it. Did the numbers come out yet of what it was?
They might have. I haven't looked since we started. Since we started, they haven't. I don't know if you guys in the chat want to help us out. I don't know if they've released while we've been in here, but before that, when we started at 7, they hadn't been released yet. Not from what I saw. But like, to me, it, like we said, it just didn't make sense. Like, I mean, you have a rookie quarterback. You want the most ability for him to succeed. You want the most weapons around him as possible. And Jamison Crowder's a hell of a weapon. Like, Berrios looks good, but I hope he's going to be good, but he's looking good in shorts. Crowder is proven in the NFL, when it matters, on the field and pads, that he's one of the best slot guys. And I think even though, again, Berrios has been good, I think now that Crowder's back, he's going to be the guy. So that's why I brought up Zach saying his role with Moore. I think it's going to be a lot of Crowder in the beginning with Moore coming in. And if Moore just decides to just dominate, then we'll see that start to change.
Yeah, and don't forget, man, like injuries, like everybody wants to get rid, like we draft Elijah Moore and you all of a sudden want to get rid of Jamison Crowder, and it's like, what happens if somebody gets nicked up? You want to go down to, bringing on Dante Moncrief? Is that what we want to do?
That year with Sam, when, what was it? Josh Malone, right? Josh Malone is his wide receiver too.
It was Chris Hogan and Josh Malone.
Great.
Like, yeah, thank you. Great.
Those guys wouldn't even make the roster on another team, like, let alone depth, let alone starters.
Yeah, no way, dude. And that's the whole thing. It's just like, we got to remember that, it's not only about the top 2 or 3 guys. You have to have the ability to get to your 4th and 5th guys and still be able to produce. You don't want to put your quarterback in a situation where if 1 or 2 guys go down, that all of a sudden he's screwed. He's throwing to guys like me out there. I don't know what the hell they're doing, fat and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want those guys out there. To have Jamison Crowder, Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, Keelan Cole, all Elijah Moore, all on the same batch, and then guys like Berrios and whoever else we keep, Vincent Smith, whoever, as 6 and 7 potentially. Dude, that is an optimal situation. That's what you want. You don't want to start getting rid of guys. With all due respect to Elijah Moore, he's never played a snap in the NFL. Guys bust all the time. Who knows, man? I don't think it's going to happen.
That's exactly it.
But it happens.
But forget busting. I don't think he's going to bust at all, but even forget busting. Most players, and it's true, actually, if you look it up, most players wind up getting hurt, even if for a limited amount of time as a rookie. They're always banged up in one way, shape, or form, because transitioning to the NFL is a whole nother animal. It's like transitioning almost to a different sport in a way, transitioning from college to the NFL. So we saw with Mims last year, he was hurt a lot. I mean, again, I don't want to see this happen, but again, just playing devil's advocate, like you said with injury possibility. What if Mims gets banged up again? or more is a rookie. Rookies have a decent potential of getting hurt. So you want depth, you want options.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. I think it's it would be one thing if we were up against the cap and we absolutely
Yeah,
needed the
we
room.
needed the money. Yeah, that was my big argument. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. But that's not our situation. Now, this makes me think, though, Harrison, that we probably do have our sights set on somebody, and we kind of needed a little bit more breathing room to be able to bring somebody like a Morgan Moses in. So this restructure, I think there's more purpose to it than it on the surface looks like. And that would really make it make more sense. It would make a lot more sense if, like, we structured Crowder and then we were able to bring Morgan Moses in or something like that. Because don't forget, we have 26 point whatever million or whatever it is. That sounds like a lot, but we still didn't sign our top three rookies, which are going to eat about another 10. So we're $16 million. It's not. It's nice breathing room, but it's not enough to start if you want to bring in a cornerback and an offensive lineman. That must get done. So we got to just think like that. If Joe Douglas is being frugal and just budgetarily safe, then it makes sense to give himself a few $1,000,000 of breathing room and then be able to bring somebody else in that he has his eyes on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. We always said, add talent, bring in more guys, but we don't even need the money in that way, which is interesting. Like, even if they didn't restructure Jamison, like this website I'm looking at, over the cap, and this reflects before Jamison Crowder's been restructured. Before he was restructured, we still had $27 million. So like you said, that was the big argument. Like, if we're gonna cut a guy or trade him or restructure him, the answer is either A, he's not what he used to be. He's not earning that money. Or B, we need the money. But we got money thanks to Joe. Joe, like we talked about, balancing the budget in 2020, even before Crowder was restructured, we're sitting with $27 million. That's plenty of money to sign a guy like Moses, even somebody else. And Crowder, I felt like deserved that money. I get him taking a cut because you can. That's the point. Joe Douglas is flexing his GM muscles. He's like, we technically don't need you. Berrios is playing great. We just drafted more. None of your money's guaranteed. Let's try to work something out. But at the same time, I feel like he was worth that. I feel like he was worth what he was getting.
Yeah. But I want you to know, I agree with you. I agree with every word you just said. But I think it does stand to reason that even though he does deserve it and did earn it, the fact that our GM he sees the opportunity to get something and he's doing it. So he's making the hard decisions and he's working even when he doesn't have to. I think that's still ultimately a positive toward what Joe Douglas can bring to our team, because a lot of times I don't think we would even broach Crowder. Previous GMs, they would, exactly like we're saying, they go, no, we're fine. Like, why do it? Like Joe Douglas saying, no, I can use the extra $3.5 million and I want it. You know what I mean? So, like you said, with having more Corey Davis, Keelan Cole, and Berrios showing up, I mean, dude, those are 3 wide receivers that were not even on the roster last year. And then you have, like I said, Berrios and Mims there as well. So it's like Jamison Crowder, look, we want you, we love you, we have a role for you, but we're just not paying you $10 million with the way things sit right now. I think even though my emotions are maybe tilted a different way, I think it's still a good thing that Joe Douglas is willing to do that work even when he doesn't have to.
Yeah, and anything can happen. I mean, you're just throwing it out of left field. Jamison Crowder was close to 1,000 yards. I think it was back in 2019, I believe, with Sam Darnold, significantly not as good quarterback. So, just thinking, what if Moore gets banged up like most rookies do? What if Jamison Crowder is unfreaking believable and has an 1,000-yard season with Zach Wilson? Then Joe Douglas could turn around and offer him a long-term deal and bring him back. Like, all the cards are on the table. Everything's a possibility right now.
Everything.
The options are there.
And the guy's looking, just like we talked about in the opening of the show. It's like, dude, look at the guys this regime just drafted. It's like, even in the 5th round, like we got Nasruddin in was it 6th? He might have been a 6th round pick.
Nasruddin was a 6th, which is just, that's insanity. Like, dude, I knew people that had him on. Dude, right. He was like, people had him in the 2nd round. Like, the latest I saw him was late 3rd. Like, that was just insanity to me.
Dude, on most draft boards that I like, I like Draft Tech, and there's lots of sites that I use. Dude, he was a top 5 safety on almost everybody's board.
Yeah. Dude, I love the guy. Literally, when we took Sherwood, my thought was like, well, I kind of wanted Nassoldine, but Sherwood straight up murders people. Like Sherwood likes to murder people, so I'm down.
Like, so that's the thing. Like, so Joe Douglas and his crew, I can't wait to see this documentary that's coming out, man. I want nothing more than to see the behind the scenes with these draft guys, like this side, the front office types. I can't wait to see this stuff, but it just shows how knowledgeable they really are on everybody, and they're always working, man. And knowing that they're like that, I mean, even like a guy like Phil Savage, who ran the Senior Bowl for almost a decade, and he's our assistant. He's not our assistant GM, but he's in there. He's in the fold as well. He's one of our staff. Having guys that know this much about these players and how the system works, like you just said, everything is on the table, man. We have guys that know what they are doing. This is what they do, and you shouldn't be surprised by anything that happens with these guys.
Yeah, and like you said, options. I mean, Corey Davis looks like the legit wide receiver 1, but hell, maybe Mims becomes that. Maybe Mims is the wide receiver 2. Maybe Cole's the wide receiver 2. Maybe Crowder has an 1,000-year season. Maybe Moore has an 1,000-year season.
Right.
Maybe Berrios breaks out. Like, there's so many options, and that's what you want. You want your rookie quarterback to have options.
Yeah, and I think it's great. I can't wait to see mandatory minicamp and see, I think Marcus May will be showing up as well. He did sign his franchise tag, and you can make your statement with voluntaries about your contract. I think mandatory comes up and start getting fined and all that other stuff. So I think we'll see even the guys that we didn't see, and hopefully Corey Davis is back and Becton is back and all that kind of stuff. That'd be great. But man, am I excited to see these guys run around a little bit more. OTAs just got me started, man. This month off is going to kill me. You know what I mean? I don't know what I'm going to do. I want to see these guys, but I can't wait till training camp, because these competitions that we're going to see are for real. For once, they're real.
Yeah, and Frank and Zach actually mentioned it up. Zach says May was there today. Frank says May has showed up. So May's there, which is great. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, what's awesome, just talking about May, like, just you want to get yourself riled up with how amazing Joe Douglas is. Like, Joe Douglas traded Jamal Adams for 2 first-round picks. Like, forget that trade. Like, Joe Douglas got more for Sam Darnold, statistically the worst quarterback in the NFL, than the Atlanta Falcons got for one of the best wide receivers to ever play the damn sport. Like, come on. Like, Joe Douglas just robs people. Like, he's got a gun in their back. He's like, give me your draft picks.
Yeah, it's really quite impressive, man. It's amazing how he does that. I think it really comes with his patience. Look at the Sam Darnold situation. Everybody was going, oh, the market's dried up. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. He waited too long, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I think Joe Douglas just doesn't feel that same pressure that everybody else does. He's just calm and collected.
And he gets the whole process. He gets it about the long game. Yeah.
It's long game.
That's how you wait.
He waits until the offer is the one that he wants. And he never puts himself in a position where he has to do anything. It's like, that's the best negotiating position that you can ever be in, is when you're okay with either option. And it's like, so you just wait until the right offer floats down the stream and you grab it. Like that Seattle offer, don't tell me that they would make the same offer today that they did last year. They would not do it. There's no way that,
and if you think about it, Seattle screwed themselves, because by trading away 2 firsts for Jamal, they still can't get a contract done. Like, could you imagine if Jamal Adams walks? Like, could you imagine? That would mean they traded away 2 firsts to rent Jamal Adams for 2 years. That's they can't do that. They basically, Jamal Adams has them because they have to pay him, because they can't let him walk.
Well, interestingly, Seattle is a place that has done that before, though. Like when they signed Matt Flynn as a big free agent quarterback, he was supposed to be their starter that year. Then they used a 3rd-round pick on Russell Wilson with the intention to develop him, and he ended up playing better. And they let their very expensive quarterback sit on the bench. So they're the kind of organization that if they do see it as just like, hey, we got to cut our losses, they will. But either way, man, if they have to pay Jamal Adams $17 million, that's a bad look. If he ends up walking like you just said, that's a bad look. So
yeah,
it's
they kind of pinned themselves in a bad situation.
They really do. They had 3 draft picks this year. 3.
I know. It's crazy, man. We had the same amount of picks of them at the end of the 2nd round.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. But it's like, and that's the thing, man. It's like Jamal Adams, that trade was supposed to put them over the top. That's when you make a
Yeah.
trade like that. If
Yeah.
that player is going to put you over the top, it's like that's what the Falcons did to acquire Julio Jones. They traded a couple firsts and they got Julio Jones, who's a Hall of Fame wide receiver. Jamal Adams doesn't move the needle for you, man. He was burned a whole bunch last year. He dropped, I think it was 4 interceptions that hit him either in the chest, hands, or face. You know what I mean? So the guy, he got his 9.5 sacks. He has his impact, but he never has the impact on the game when you need him to have an impact on the
Yeah.
game. He's not that guy.
You can easily
He's
make
not
the
the guy
argument now that
saving it.
he's a box safety.
Yeah, and he's not making the big play, 4th and 1. It's just not. He's never done that. Maybe a handful of times in his whole career. He's just not that guy. He's a good player, and I don't want to try to make it sound like I'm saying anything otherwise. But he's not 2 firsts and a third. That's not who it is either. And they wouldn't make that trade again today. There's no way. There's no way they would do the
No
same
way they
thing.
would. There'd be no way.
So
No way.
Joe,
Insanity.
and that's the magic of Joe Douglas.
Julio didn't get that much.
No, dude, he got
We got more for Sam.
For Sam.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yep. It really is. It really is nuts, man. And that's all Joe Douglas. And Joe Douglas did that stuff at the end of the year last year, sending McClendon to a competitor, to a contender, sending Avery Williamson to a contender, sent Jared Willis over to a contender. So he did all that stuff, like taking care of his vets. That stuff goes a long way too, man. He knows what he's doing. He's letting agents know he's the guy to work with. He knows how to make trades. He knows how to wheel and deal. He knows how to draft. Dude, the guy's on top of it, man. I'm real happy with the way things are going, dude. Really.
No, I think you make a really good point with that, because exactly with agents, with players wanting to come to your team, he treats them well. He sends players away well. He sends them, like you said, to contenders. And the Sam situation even, you look at Sam Darnold, he could have traded him anywhere, theoretically. Could have traded him anywhere. But I think, and he actually, McCagnon told Sam Darnold, told his parents, I'm going to set you up for success. And clearly that was a bold-faced lie. But when Joe Douglas told them,
here's Nathan Shepard for you.
I bet Blake Cashman will help.
Yeah, here you go. Blake Cashman, Rashawn Austin, and Nathan Shepard. There you go.
Exactly. This will work. But when Joe Douglas told his parents, I'm going to do right by your son, I think he actually did, because he wasn't his guy. That wasn't his quarterback. He wanted to get a quarterback, could have sent Sam anywhere by sending him to the Panthers. He sends him to the head coach that was supposed to be his head coach. Matt Rule was supposed to be his head coach in 2018. He was all ready to coach a Sam Darnold offense. So he's the guy to send him to. Robbie Anderson, his former favorite deep threat, other players he's comfortable with, a guy like Joe Brady that might be able to get the best out of him, a decent offensive line. I legitimately think he did right by Sam and did right by us.
Yeah, I think so too. He sent them to the coach that was going to be the head coach of the New York Jets, who was taking this job specifically to work with Sam Darnold. He sent them to Matt Rule, who's known to be able to get the most out of his players, who has a young, so far brilliant-looking offensive mind in Joe Brady. A couple of his players were there. You had Elflein and Robbie Anderson. You got McCaffrey. There's an infrastructure there that can benefit Sam Darnold. And even though they didn't use their first on him, they did help Sam Darnold out with the draft. They got a couple guys for protection, got a couple guys for weapons. So he sent them to a very good situation. If he fails, he fails. But like what Joe Douglas said, he said, when he was asked that question, if Sam Darnold does well down there, then it's going to make you look bad. And he said, I could give two shits about that. He said, you're telling me I have to root against him? He said, he's like, he said, I make a habit of rooting for good people, and Sam's a good dude. I'm rooting for that kid. I want him to do well. That's why I sent him there.
Couldn't have been a better answer. Couldn't have been better.
I could give two shits. Get out of here.
That's the big thing, and that's been like my message to Jets Twitter with week 1 when we're playing the Panthers. I think Sam is not that great a quarterback, and I think Zach Wilson is going to be unbelievable. But Zach Wilson is playing in his first NFL game. We have to acknowledge that he'll be playing in his first ever NFL game, and Sam Darnold will be playing in his 39th. So in theory, I mean, even though Sam has been bad, he should actually look better than Zach. So my big fear is that even if even if Zach looks good and we lose this game, you know it. You talked about those beat writers. The whole freaking spin is going to be we made the wrong decision. We sent away the wrong quarterback. Sam should have been the guy. I want to nip that in the bud right now because, again, it's Zach Wilson's first ever NFL game. I'd go as far to say I don't care what happens in that game. It's his first ever NFL game. I don't care what Sam looks like. Zach Wilson is our guy. He will be our guy, and he's eventually going to be 1,000 times better than Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I made a whole video on it. They were trying to have this narrative that somehow Joe Douglas and Zach Wilson are under more pressure than Matt Rule and Sam Darnold. Dude, there's no way.
How?
Don't forget,
How?
Matt Rule's going into his second year. He already got rid of Cam Newton to sign Teddy Bridgewater to a 3-year, $63 million contract, then traded Teddy Bridgewater for a sixth and brought in Sam Darnold for a second, a fourth, and a sixth. Dude, there's
and he
pressure.
Passed on quarterbacks in the draft. He
That's
passed
right.
and said, they said you could have had a guy like Justin Fields, but he's like, no, Sam's our guy. We want to take a guy like J.C. Horn. So, yeah, they're much more under scrutiny. If Sam doesn't work out, it's not just the end of Sam, it's the end of Matt Rule.
It really is, man. This is it. This is it. Like I said, he already had Cam Newton and Teddy Bridgewater in the house. Teddy Bridgewater by choice, and they're both already gone in 1 year. Like you said, he passed on every quarterback in the draft not named Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, and Trey Lance. So he had really the rest of the class, he had pickings. If Mac Jones does well, if Justin Fields does well, if Kellen Mond does well, all those guys he could have had. If Sam Darnold fails, it's going to look real bad on him. And for Sam, his career's over. If he doesn't make it with Matt Rule and Joe Brady and Christian McCaffrey behind him, he's not a starter in the NFL anymore. He's going to be relegated to reserve duty at best. And that's a ton of pressure on him. We're going to go in there loose as a goose. Robert Saleh's first game, Zach Wilson's first game, they're going to be loose, tossing the ball all over the place. You know what I mean?
And the other important thing that people underrated aspect as well is how are teams going to be preparing for us in the beginning? I mean, there's no set footage. This is a new rookie quarterback with a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator. Never been an offensive coordinator before. Ulbrich, is back at DC. There's so many new pieces. You're going to have to look at Zach Wilson at BYU and synthesize that with Robert Saleh with the 49ers. And then there's no legitimate, all of this to see together right now. So I'm convinced those first 2 weeks minimum, because teams will eventually catch on. This is the NFL. But those first 2 weeks minimum, no one knows what we're bringing. No one knows. That's the time to smack somebody in the face.
Right. 2-0, baby.
Yeah.
That's what we'll be. We'll be 2-0. Actually, I believe we're going to be 3-0. And then we'll lose some. But we're going to start this season 3-0, in my opinion. That's going to be a little bit of fun now, isn't it?
That would be amazing, man. If this team goes 3-0, then it's going to be Zach Wilson's the man. The Jets finally got it right. We're in the right direction.
The Empire State Building will be green. You'll see. It's week 3. It's all green in New York already. That's what New York's waiting for the Jets to be great. You know it, man. Everybody hates the Giants. They suck. Giants are boring, dude.
It's our time, man. It's our time. We paid our dues. Our time is coming.
I'm ready.
I am too, man. I am too. But yeah, we talked all about OTAs, talked about Jamison Crowder. Is there anybody else you want? Well, one guy actually we didn't bring up. You were talking about, Javelin Guidry, that you're not as big a fan. I liked him a lot, but he's actually not starting in the slot right now. It's Michael Carter II. Michael Carter II is making a lot of noise and is looking really good in that slot cornerback spot.
That's my horse. That's the guy I want. That's the guy I want to start. If he doesn't look good and Eccles or Javelin Guidry outplays him, fine, and stick those guys in. But the guy the guy I'm actively rooting for is Michael Carter II. I like a whole bunch about that guy when I dug into him after the draft because he wasn't somebody that I was looking at in honesty. I didn't know too much about him. And I thought it was a typo. I thought it was weird. Something happened on the screen when they said the Jets drafted Michael Carter. I thought they were replaying this. You know what I mean? It was a whole weird experience.
Bro, I feel like the media dropped the ball. Okay, so they got the same name, which is true. But it's so much deeper than that. Not only do they have the same name, they went to rival schools. Yeah. That's just crazy.
Against each other.
Exactly. Yeah. They're not only have the same name, but they legit went to Duke and Tar Heel, rival schools. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. Right, there was a lot there, man. But I really like him, and the fact that he's come out and really made a quick name for himself in a similar fashion as Michael Carter, the running back, and Elijah Moore have, I couldn't be happier, man. I would love to get 4 or 5 initial starters right out of this draft class. Well, the rookies, and they're going to have their bumps and bruises and make their mistakes. But I would rather see them get right on the field and just do it than bring in an old vet and let them take playing time away from them. Like, with respect to Brian Poole, I happen to like Brian Poole, but there's something there. I don't know why nobody's signing him. There hasn't been any real interest in Brian Poole. And I'm not really in a hurry to bring him back. If they do, fine. I'm not against
I like those
it.
three young guys we got, man. This
yeah, but I like the young guys. I would rather
like you said,
see
the cultivating of talent.
Exactly. And
Two guys are rookies, and one was an undrafted rookie last year. They're all like 22 years old.
So think about it. We start Zach Wilson, AVT, Michael Carter, Elijah Moore, and then Michael Carter the second, Jamie
all starters, and Michael Carter the running back.
Yeah, that's right. So all out of this draft. Can you imagine, dude?
That's a lot of starters.
After Becton, Mims, Davis, Hall, Mann, dude, we don't have drafts like that around here. The fact that these guys are all starters and or at least contributors on the field, it's amazing. Even our undrafted guys, I really like Lamar Jackson. I think he was put in a very difficult position last year. He shouldn't have been in that position, and it obviously didn't work out that game against the Raiders. But I like his potential, and I think that having guys like that, and then you like I said, with the undrafted free agents this year, Dunn, Rashid, all those kinds of guys. Dude, we have Huff from last year, Yaboa. We have guys that can still make an impact from that deep in the draft. And dude, it's exciting, man. I would rather see Michael Carter the second start at slot than any other player on our team, and I would rather not bring somebody in to take playing time away from him. That would be my best case to see him start.
I love him, man. I really do. I mean, I love Guidry too. He's an undrafted guy, but either one, like you said, either one. Heck, even if it's Eccles, the young guys that want it, there's so much potential there. And you mentioned, not wanting to bring in an older guy. Saleh said the same thing. They asked Saleh in interviews about bringing in an older cornerback, and he literally said he didn't want to do it. He's like, bringing in an older guy takes away from the younger guys, and he said, I feel like we got a lot of potential here and a lot of these young guys, and I want to see who can bring it. And Lamar Jackson, he was an undrafted rookie last year. He's a big, physical, solid corner like Bryce Hall. Hey, he's not going to run with the fastest guy. He's going to get burned over the top, but he presses like nobody's business. He's extremely physical. And interesting stat about Lamar Jackson. Do you know which Jet player had the lowest missed tackle percentage last year on the whole team?
No,
Lamar Jackson. Yeah. Lamar Jackson had the lowest missed tackle percentage of anybody on the Jets. Yeah, so there's potential there. There's, like you mentioned, with Austin and Dunn and just every position you think of, you can, like you said, list 4 or 5 guys, and that's what makes it exciting. We're not looking for who can step up, out of these nobodies. We're looking for, we got a lot of talent here. This is exciting. What can come of this?
Yeah, I know, and it really is, man. And I love to hear Robert Saleh say that. I think that's great. It's like, no, man. Look, we have a bunch of young guys that we feel really good about. Why bring in a grizzled old vet to take away from James Morgan's development? Look, if we do it, fine. But I like that they're at least considering this. Dude, just let's develop these guys. You got Zach Wilson, James Morgan, and White, who's looked pretty good in practice too. Just develop the quarterbacks. If one goes down, if Zach Wilson goes down, just stick the next guy in and just figure it out from there. What do you think, if we bring in Foles, you think we're going to the Super Bowl this year? It's highly unlikely, man. Let's just
I don't even like Foles as a mentor. I feel like if we're bringing in an older quarterback, it should be like the Josh McCown, Sam Darnold situation. It should be a guy that's going to mentor Zach Wilson, teach him, when Zach goes to the sideline, unlike, with Adam Gase, where Sam's sitting there on his own trying to figure out what the hell happened. McCown used to talk to him. That's what we want. I don't see that in Foles. I mean, Foles, even when he started, was never that great to begin with. I don't see him as the guy I want in his ear. I'd rather a guy like what's his name? Is the guy from the Patriots. I'm blanking. What we were talking about me. Is he still available?
No, they signed him.
He's gone? Okay.
Yeah, they traded.
But that's the kind of guy, I mean, I
Mullins
don't know
just
about
got
trading
signed
for
too.
Foles because that's another guy I like. But Mullins I like more as a backup. Like, I want to see if you're bringing in a guy, I really want it like a McCown situation, like a guy that knows the game. And when Zach makes a mistake, he's seen it because he's been in the league so long. He's played in a lot of systems. He can show him something that he didn't see. Like, oh, did you see that? Or, oh, did you miss that? Or, what were you thinking when you made this decision? Like, have a conversation, which McCown and Sam always had. And it's, no surprise, Sam's best year was when Josh McCown was there.
Yeah, it is no surprise. And you look at a guy like Foles, you got to be he's a little bit more interested in when you're going to go down so he can get his chance.
Exactly. That was the same thing with Flacco. That's why I didn't like him either.
That's right. Yeah, man.
Flacco's not a mentor. Flacco ain't telling you shit.
No, and he actually said as much with Drew Lock. He said, I didn't sign here to fucking train anybody. I'm here to play. And same thing like with people wanting to go and get Gardner Minshew. It's like, dude, he wants to start, man. That guy, he's not happy. He was pissed when they benched him last year to try to get the #1 overall pick. That's a guy, he comes on the team, he's going to start trying to recruit his guys that are on Team Minshew. And I don't like it. I just leave those guys out of here. We want guys that are all going to be on the Zach Wilson train. And if he goes down, they know it's their turn to step up. Or like you said, somebody that's here just to mentor. But not for nothing. We have a friggin' quarterback coach for once. So it's and a real offensive coordinator. So let them mentor Zach Wilson and let's just develop young quarterbacks and see how it goes, man. I got no problem with it. Like I said, I'm not anti bringing in a vet necessarily, but I like that they're at least considering keeping just a stable of young quarterbacks like the old days. We should just have quarterbacks on the team. Your second and third were just young guys.
They have a quarterback coach. They have a new young OC. Michael Flores making a go with this, and it's exciting what he brings to the table. The West Coast version of like what Shanahan has developed, his unique spin on that. Yeah, let them develop them. They're definitely going to be the voices in Zach's ears. And I had tweeted that out, not too long ago. There was a picture of Zach and Michael Flores standing next to each other talking, and that is going to be such an important relationship. Like, that relationship is so important. Like, if any relationship is going to make or break us, it could honestly be that relationship. The development of Zach Wilson with the development of our young OC.
Right. Look how bad it was for Sam Darnold. Like Sam Darnold, like we talked about, he wasn't necessarily the guy that I want. I was very happy to get him, but he wasn't the guy I was looking at. And it's like, but that first year, man, with Josh McCown, dude, Sam Darnold legitimately flashed.
That was when he sold me. That was when I was like,
right,
Sam's
me too. I was like,
after the rookie year.
That's the game one when he threw the pick six and then came back and lit that game up. I was like, okay, man, we have somebody with some metal here. And then, we fire that coaching staff, which, by the way, Jeremy Bates didn't hire a quarterback coach either. So that's another interesting thing. Sam never had a quarterback coach his entire time in the NFL. So then we hire Adam Gase, and the guy literally doesn't bring in a quarterback coach, and Dowell Loggins is his offensive coordinator, a coordinator in name only. He's not an offensive coordinator. And then,
it's
you know
true,
what I mean? And then, like,
I like to make the joke. It's like, what's that? The ventriloquist thing. It's like, you ever notice that Dowell Loggins isn't talking when Adam Gase is drinking water?
Yeah. That's funny. But yeah, man, like, notice, like, there were times, like, Sam Darnold has an atrocious series, throws a pick, and comes to the sideline and sits on the bench by himself. Meanwhile, Adam Gase is sitting on the other side of the bench by himself. Like, what is this? So now we finally have a situation where these guys are going to be actively engaged in the quarterback's progression and development and the game plan and how it's going and adjustments and all those kinds of things. And look, if you have two young quarterbacks looking over, holding the clipboard, just the coach, the young guys develop together, I'm all for it. The way that they choose to do it, say, let's do it.
Yeah, and if we're talking about it's only been OTAs. So it's OTAs, obviously, they're not in pads, they're not hitting. Right. They're just in shorts. But if we're talking about OTAs only, I actually liked Mike White a little bit over James Morgan. I felt like Mike White, from what I saw, looked a little better, in my opinion, than Morgan. And Mike White, this kid, has a ridiculous football IQ. Like GreenBean, you talk about liking football IQ. Like, Mike White's football IQ is, like, off the chain. Like, this guy, like, if you talk to him about play progression and formation and reads, he will make you fall in love with him.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. Like I'm in, and I agree with you. He's looked better than James Morgan so far in OTAs. And look, that's fine too. If James Morgan is the 3 and White is the second, like I don't really care. Let's do this. Let's keep Zach Wilson on his feet. Let's do that first, and then we can just develop guys and bring up a whole stable of young players and young quarterbacks, young receivers and young cornerbacks. Let's bring young linebackers. Let's bring them all up together and have a young team that's here for the next 4 or 5 years. And then we'll just keep drafting and keep bringing in young guys. And that's the way it's going to be. I love it.
I'm
Right,
so
man?
with you, man.
About
I'm
time.
so with you. It's that term I kept saying, that cultivating talent. That's how it works. I mean, that's so many things we talked about, loving about Joe Douglas, like just the words he uses. Like he says the things I think. Like it's amazing. He's like, you supplement through free agency and build through the draft. And I'm like, hallelujah. Like somebody gets it. Someone gets it. And he's got his offensive line and defensive line philosophy, which is a huge thing with me. I've been saying my whole thing is football is won and lost in the trenches. Like I just love the way this guy approaches the game.
Totally. And it's so exciting, man. We got speed. We have work ethic. The fact that, I mean, we say it all the time. You've heard it a million times by now, but the fact that over 80 guys showed up for voluntaries, man, we weren't, all the articles weren't about why Le'Veon Bell isn't there and having to defend that and all this bullshit. It wasn't about that. It was like almost every player is here in camp and they're working their ass off and everything's good. And at night, they're all hanging out together at Islanders games or they're all out to dinner together. And dude, it's such a breath of fresh air, man. And it's so exciting. I can't wait till mandatory minicamp. I can't wait till this damn documentary comes out next week. I hope they're still doing One Jets Drive. I want to see it all, man. I want to just ingest more Jets. I can't wait. It's exciting.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. And just there, everyone knows, the phase 3 is beginning next week. So
yeah, there you go. Phase 3 it is. I'm in.
It's
I
exciting.
love mini camps, man. I love it. I can't wait till training camp. We got to work real hard to pass the time fast. That's what we got to do on this end. That's our job, Harrison. Pass the time fast so we can get the training camp quicker. That's what we got to do.
Exactly, man. I'm excited. I can't wait. And like you said, there's just so many stories like we saw in OTAs. There's just so much depth at all these positions due to drafting well, bringing in the right guys, getting the right undrafted guys. Like we just did, like every position, you can just literally list like all this possibility and, who's going to be the guy to step up.
Yeah. And it's like, dude, there still could be guys that we're not even really hearing about yet, like the Yaboas, like, some of our undrafted free agents. Like we're hearing about Isaiah Dunn, but what about Lamar Jackson? What about these other guys that are coming up? And it's like, what about what's the defensive tackle that we drafted? What the hell was his name again?
Jonathan Marshall.
Jonathan Marshall. Yeah.
So what's interesting about Marshall is like, and I again, just loving all the picks. Like I didn't know a lot about him. When I looked him up, I saw that the unanimous takes on him where this dude is fast for his size. Yeah, like for a 6'3", 317-pound guy, he is fast and he is quick. But everyone's knock on him was like, he's not that strong. He's not that strong. But then he freaking had 36 bench press reps. The dude like destroyed it. He was in the 99th percentile with bench press reps when it came to D tackles. So I think Joe's thinking maybe, he just wasn't utilized well. The strength is there. The athleticism is there. Man, just everybody. Just Brandon Eccles, every pick. Like I legitimately love every pick that Joe Douglas had.
Yeah, and that's definitely not the norm. Did you feel that way? Like during McCagnon's, let's just use his last.
Oh no, it was the opposite. It was the opposite.
Wasn't it?
That's what I was saying before. Like I would get you could ask my dad. I'm furious because I would literally turn to him and be like, okay, so at this pick, I want to go, this position, this position, this position. I would list off 10 guys I really like. Then they would draft him. Then he'd be like, that's not a guy you mentioned. And I'll be like, yeah. That's not a guy I fucking mentioned.
You're like any one of these.
Get so angry.
Yeah, any one of these 5 positions, and I'd be fine. And it's not that. It's funny because like I actually defended McCagnon a little bit more than I should have. Like I really thought at the time that the way I saw it was that a lot of the picks looked like they were for bowls to me, like the Darren Lees and just all, Marcus May and Jamal Adams in the same draft. I had this idea that Bowles was kind of influencing the picks a little bit more. And when Bowles left, I was really excited to see what a Mike Maccagnan draft could actually look like. Dude, by his second pick, I was like, this is bad. Like, it's him. It's him. This guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. As soon as he took Blake Cashman, remember all the trades in the fourth round? He traded back 3 times in the fourth round, all to make up 10 spots in the fifth. All out of that. And it's like, and then he ends up taking Trevon Wesco. He let all kinds of centers go, Pierce Baker, all those guys. And I was like, oh my God, this is worse than I've ever.
And Joe Douglas is
imagined.
like the opposite. People were so mad that we traded away 2 third-round picks to get AVT. Man, those people, they don't know who AVT is. They haven't seen this kid play. Like, when you watch AVT play, I've been saying, like, I said this kid was a top 15 talent. I was like, if the Jets want him, they got to trade up to the top 15. Joe Douglas took it a step further and said he's a top 10. Like, the quality of guard we got. Like, this kid had a 92.8 pass blocking grade last season, almost perfect. He's a great run blocker. His form is just perfect technique. Like, you got to compare this to, like, when Washington took Brandon Scherf. Like, when the Colts took Quentin Nelson. Like, this is the quality. Yeah, this is the quality of offensive guard we took. And I'm saying, people are saying, oh, we gave up 2/3. Give it a year, give it 2. The story's going to be, that's it. Like, that's all you gave away to get a guy like AVT. And Joe still traded back to wind up with the same amount of picks.
Same amount of picks, man. He did fine. Like, look, third, I think the third round, it's weird. It might be my favorite round in the whole, like, obviously first round, but it's like the third round is where, like, things start to kind of settle down. Some guys you didn't were going to be there. Some guys that you didn't think were going to get taken are taken. So I was really upset when it first happened with the fact that they got another 4th too. It wasn't just that pick for 2/3. It was that pick and the 4th. So that made me feel better. But again, it's all about AVT. And, whenever you get one of those players, when you look back 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years later, nobody talks about, the second that you gave up to get Darrelle Revis. Nobody cares. And it's all about the play. That's the most important thing. It's all about protecting Zach Wilson. That's it, man. It's all that matters.
Yeah, it's true. And like Frank nailed it here, man. He's right. Out of the 16 players in the draft with elite grades, like not just good, not just great, but considered the best in the draft, we got 3 of them. We got Zach Wilson, who was my guy. We traded up to get AVT, who, like we just said, was unequivocally the best guard in this draft. You got to think of him like a Quentin Nelson. Think of him like a Brandon Scherf. You're getting one of the best guards, period, with flawless technique, excellent ability. And Elijah Moore, which easily should have been a first-round pick. Like, he's way more of a talent than Denzel Mims was. Like, Elijah Moore was unbelievable, the best slot wide receiver in college football. All 3 of these guys have the potential to be elite superstars.
Yeah. I think that's a really great point. That's a good way to put it. I love when you can do things like kind of put things in perspective like that. 16 players, the Jets got 3 of them. What are we crying about? You know what I mean? Like, if you come out of a draft with starters, it's a good draft. It really is. They just look like they might have 6. And that's not even, we don't know about the rest of the guys and what they'll develop into. Who knows if somebody's a special teams ace, or who knows if somebody's 8 years of quality depth. Who knows? Well, you need those guys too. Who knows what we got? But the fact that, the first 3 players, not only are they starters, we're looking at elite players. Dude, it's just not something that we're used to seeing here, man.
I agree, man. I agree. In fact, I would even go as far to say, I think they're all starters right now in the beginning, honestly, except for Echols, man. I really do. Michael Carter, running back 1, easily. I told you, I think Sherwood and Nassourdine should be starting at linebacker, both on the outside, just dominating. I mean, I really like Jason Pinnock. I see him as the starting CB2. I mean, other than Brandon Echols, Jonathan Marshall. So other than Jonathan Marshall and Brandon Echols, I could see them all as starters.
Yeah, well, hey, you never know, man. I disagree slightly, but I don't have that much of an issue. I don't think you're like talking crazy. It's like I think Jared Davis is going to be starting this year, and I think probably if I had to pick one of the 2, I think Scherf is probably going to be the one to start but I think Nazrul Dean's going to see a whole bunch of playing time. I'm really excited to see what Jabari's going to get and Bryce Huff in year 2. Like you said, Jonathan
Oh man, I'm
Franklin-Myers, I'm
stoked
psyched about
Huff.
him. Yeah, Huffsker, dude, he's got such a good burst first step, man. And he made some impact last year coming,
He did. He was a
right
big
as
guy I wanted. Yeah.
dude. So I'm really excited about our young guys. Like I said earlier, and we talked about it a little bit. Our problem this year, for the first time, a very long time, is going to be we're going to have to make some tough decisions on letting good talent go.
Exactly.
And that's not what we're used to around here. It's going to be
that's
tough.
like you said. That's a good problem to have.
It is.
That's like you said, man. That's 100%. That's a good problem to have.
And a lot of people are going to be upset because their guy gets left off the team. But at the same time, it's going to happen. Like, we're going to have to get rid of some good guys, whether it's receivers, tight ends, defensive line. It's happening. We're going to have to let some good guys go. But hey, it's much better than having to scour the waivers to see who got, so they can be our starter. You know what I mean? We had, how many times we're scouring waiver wires for impact players? Like, oh my God, it's terrible. So this is a good problem. I'm in.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Were there any other players you wanted to bring up that we didn't bring up? Any guy that you're like, I really like this guy? I remember you mentioned Rashad. You said you really like Rashad.
Oh, yeah, man. We talked about a little bit. Like I said, if he came out the year earlier, I really do believe he would have been a first-round pick. I think it all starts to smear together at this point for me. But I believe it was with him. No, Nazrul Dean had the injury. Yeah, I forget why.
Nazrul Dean had the injury. But yeah, if he wasn't hurt, he could have been in the conversation as a first-round pick. Nazrul Dean.
Yeah, but even with his injury, he was definitely not supposed to make it past the third, maybe the early fourth.
Like he had 192 tackles in 2 years. That's 8 shy from 100 a season. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So but the guy like Rashid, I think he's one of those guys, man. He should have come out the year earlier. He would have been a first-round pick. Now, one of the interesting things about him is one of his benefits, like one of his real strengths is that he's excellent in pursuit. Excellent in pursuit. When they started running at him, he had a lot more difficulty kind of taking on the block and shedding it to make the play. So that's where a lot of his numbers dipped. He had a much more difficult time. Like, teams kind of figured that out, that running away from him is kind of not the thing to do. So we'll have to work on that. And I think that for that reason, they are going to have to, apply some development to him. But dude, the juice is in the jar, man. I mean, he's got what you want. You just got to work with him, and that's it. So I think, again, our undrafted free agent classes the last 2 years are just below excellent to me. And I think this one's better than even last year. I like last year's free agents. I'm with you, man.
I'm with you. And yeah, it's been awesome. It's been really great having you here. I wanted to say I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah,
it's been a lot of fun talking with you, man.
For sure. It just melts away. We know what we're doing. We're just talking. This is the shit we like, right? I appreciate it, man. I love being on here with you, man. I think it's a good time, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. But yeah, all you guys out there, if you're not following the show, please do. Again, we're live every Monday at 7 p.m., just like we were this week. I want to thank you guys, like always, for tuning into the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. It's been a lot of fun, and thank you for tuning in.
Later, guys.